Ready, aim, release! Anyone see my mammoth? Hello! We are back again on another Monday for another stream. Let's see how things are going. I just managed to pause Carlo there in pensive mode
Yep.
because of my silly setup. No, I thought it was a good face. I had to let the viewers see it. The viewers don't get to see that face very often. The pensive Carlo. Right. So it's another Monday, and this last week has been an absolute minefield. Gold mine, goldfield mine. Some kind of like correction of those three words.
You mean something happened?
Yeah, something actually happened,
for the first time in a while.
Which is both like it's gold for us to then mine and share with people and talk about and lovely stuff, but it's also a minefield, as in like what on earth do you talk about at the right time? Okay, double Mickey. Oh God, that means either he's getting my volume twice, or worst of all, he thinks there's two of me. That's terrible. If he thinks there's two of me, that's a terrible thing. Hopefully not. So, how are you doing this week, Carlo?
Good, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Nothing change happened. Nothing. 10% louder.
No. I'm just. I've got a ton of stuff to paint in time for the GT. I've been very happy with how the dragons have come out after what is basically like a total of about 2 hours work over the 3 dragons with some airbrush stuff and a little bit of washing. But I've still got a lot of horses, a lot of cavalry to paint. So
that's fine. I mean, I saw you. I've turned myself down now. Hopefully that's better for you, Scott. Yes, the stuff you were painting the other day, right? Have you actually made any more progress on it? I know you've been away this weekend.
Yeah, I've been painting all day. I don't actually do any work.
Classic. Why did I think I knew that answer already? So yes, we'll obviously come on to hobby stuff later on. There is obviously hobby stuff. Should we actually get into the news now that Scott's absolutely thrown us off kilter?
Well then.
Go on.
And,
right.
And Vlad, yep. I'm playing Targs at the Scottish GT.
Some of us have to deal with Carlo playing Targs. It's an unpleasant experience for everyone involved. Mainly Carlo. Right then. So there's loads of stuff to break down today, guys. It's not going to be a nice and simple, quick one. So instead of normal Tourney ground, what we've decided to do is cancel everything and leave you in someone else's comfortable hands where they can decide everything. That's right. Yeah, that was what we planned, Carlo. I'm pretty sure that's exactly what we said to each other.
Thought we tried to do that every week.
Yeah, that's what we do every week. Right. No, obviously the first thing we're going to talk about is what happened on Tuesday morning in absolute classic format. Before we move on to the actual news, Carlo, Tuesday morning, is it slowly becoming a combination of the best and worst day for us?
Whether or not the releases come because of Tourney ground, or just maybe somebody only works on a Tuesday, or whatever it is. Tuesday is without a doubt the day that you get most things appearing about Simon based Song of Ice and Fire stuff. So we're always last to comment on it. Or not actually. Sometimes it seems to take most other people way more than a week to even find it on Facebook. So yeah. Mickey somehow is still always first, despite the fact that we don't really talk about it till next Monday.
Well, it's crazy. So this is not thanks to all of the people who obviously find this information. That it's not me just searching things. I don't have time to do that all the time. I do have time for it somewhat, but people find it and they break it, and obviously a lot of it times is Discords and things where it first comes out, or I'll get a message or something like that, and then it's just a case of, well, yes, you've told one community, and I'm not saying anyone should go out there and tell every community, but I like to believe that information should be free to be shared, and people should know, and if one community knows, then why not tell the rest? And it's always best to warrant the people who found the information, like Mikel has previously in the past. Obviously, the guys in Spain, some of the other Spanish guys on their website, and in some cases the French YouTubers, or as it was another one, Singapore again, Indonesia, doing their job as well. So yes. Anyway, we'll break on with the first one, and the first one is a nice and easy one for us to start today on. It is Stark Heroes 3. There you go.
Yeah. I almost forgot that this happened this week. It was so long ago. Yeah. Like I actually thought I was thinking Drowned Man. I was thinking blah blah blah. Yeah, Stark Heroes 3.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you forget who they were as well?
I've seen.
Okay. Do you want to break them down for us, because you're perfect with this kind of knowledge, right?
All right. Top left is, I forget what her name is. Is it how do you say Lyanna? Is it Lyanna?
Yeah, I'll give you that.
Lyanna.
Lyanna.
Yeah. Yep. Top right, Brynden Horsefish.
Yep.
Bottom left is Hand of the King version Ned.
Yep.
Bottom right is Maeve Mormont.
Hooray!
Bottom middle was I remember I hadn't ever heard of him before, not being a significant book reader. I'd heard of the House, and top middle another Rob.
Yes. So to put
you
out your
Rob
misery,
again. Yeah. What's bottom middle? Who's he again?
Pop quiz. No one said it in chat because I'm guessing they're just slightly behind, and also they want to see you struggle. I prefer to see you struggle as well. It's Rickard Karstark, as the box description.
Yeah.
Which if you've not seen if you've not read the books, Rickard Karstark's less important in the TV show, although he is obviously important because he's the guy. He's the older bloke who Rob has killed because he wants to kill.
Is he the one that Rob bites his? It's not the one who Rob Grey Wind bites his hand off.
No, I can't remember. In the TV show, I honestly can't remember. But Rickard Karstark is the Karstark that Rob actually has. He kills Rickard Karstark because he goes against Rob's orders about the Lannisters, specifically Jaime. He wants to kill Jaime, I believe, because Jaime killed his sons, and Rob actually has him killed, which is what leads to the Karstarks, which you might not know. Spoilers for anyone. The Karstarks actually join the rebellion against Rob when Walder and the Boltons do their thing. It's part of the Karstarks are part of that. Hence the reason you have Karstark loyalists and at some point Karstark non-loyalists, or the anti-Stark kind of side of it. Yeah, he kills the Lannister cousins and nephews, and he wants to kill Jaime. But yeah.
And everybody thinks it's Great John. I did think that was Great John, but then I just had this half thought that it was that it was Karstark. Okay. Big Sag. No Edmure Tully.
Yeah, no, it's been the talking point really with this box has been that okay, we expected Brynden, we've seen the model, we knew Brynden was coming. We expected Maeve Mormont, she's needed to come out for so long that it's just been a massive shame that she hasn't. Lyanna, people had a lot to say about Lyanna because she's basically not in the books at all. She's a non-entity really. The whole bit with her in the TV series where she's like, "There's only one king, Rob in the north." That was actually that was literally a raven that she sent with that message, if I remember rightly. So she doesn't really appear in the books. But yeah, I can understand certainly if you're trying to target the TV show watchers, obviously with her interaction with the giant later on, I can get her inclusion. Rickard Karstark is a brilliant inclusion, 100% fantastic, brilliant character actually. Really, and I love the pose. It says exactly what you think of Rickard Karstark. Is that by the end of it, he's a very torn man. He's had his sons killed basically, and he's absolutely distraught, and he just wants vengeance. Which I think they've captured in the pose. The pose it's that very impending pose, isn't it? You see it a lot with berserker types and warrior types. So that's great. I think the ultimate sadness actually out of this box. I don't know what you think here. Ned and Rob.
Yeah, yeah. So like, Hand of the King Ned feels like he was initially designed when NCU commanders still existed.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so okay, fair enough. All right, cool. Another Rob though, when we're talking starter box Rob, we're talking old school Rob, we're talking new starter box Rob. Like, come on, like how many Robs do you need? I mean, we'll come on to how many Jamies you need, but like it, especially if you're going to put effort into, presume, like he has to have new rules, right? Like that he 100% has to have new rules. So he's no less effort. It's not like, so an alt sculpt is like, hey, same rules, new design model, which means that you didn't have to put any input into rules, and you got to release another model, and people can have another model. If you're going to give him rules, then you've had to put a full set of design into him. He's had to have a model designed, he's had rules designed, and you got to consider him versus his other versions to see whether or not they're worthwhile. All of that says you could have just made a new character, like, and there are still so many characters to come up with and to release that why, like, I think people are just like, why? I don't want the same characters again and again. I don't want another version of this character. I'd much rather have seen Edmure Tully, or like, I'm sure there's loads. I'm sure there's loads out there.
Well,
but
yeah,
hey,
quite a few people in the chat saying Daisy, which again, you won't know too much about Daisy, but as another one of the Stark Bannermen, who becomes a very prominent role in the books. So yeah, I mean, yeah, it's Rob's inclusion is a bit sad. Obviously, I don't think Rob is going to be an NCU. I think it would be mad to have a NCU King in the North Rob with this kind of pose as well. This says to me very much an on-field commander pose. And the Hand of the King Ned feels a bit weird because we've already got Eddard Stark as an NCU / commander. And now we've got another version of Eddard Stark, and he's going to be an NCU. There's no way he's an on-field attachment with a pose like that and the position he holds.
And isn't the starting point the killing of Ned?
No. The starting point is the death of Robert Baratheon.
Okay. Oh.
Which is why Robert isn't in the game. And also why Lady isn't in the game, because Lady died before that.
Yeah, but I mean, like,
yeah.
How many Ned? Come on. He survives one series, guys.
The annoying thing is with Ned is
he's got like 4 versions.
He's only got 3 now. Come on. The annoying thing with Ned is the fact that actually he is a prominent character, but again, like, it's not that having him is a bad thing, but it's the fact they've missed out on other stuff to have him in, like Edmure. And I really do cry out for Carl here from West Coast. Like, how come still the Tully affiliation basically means absolutely fuck all? Like, it's literally terrible. There is rumours about how many commanders are in the box. We know Brynden is. I mean, you'd be fairly sensible to say that Rob is. But with the 27 cards in the box, there is actually scope for a 3rd commander. Now, it could be Rickard Stark.
Mm-hmm.
It could be Maeve Mormont. Now, I'd be surprised if they went the Mormont, because they haven't had a Mormont commander so far. But there's nothing stopping them.
No, yeah, it's possible. I'd go with Karstark over Mormont myself.
Yeah, that's fair.
I feel like Maeve Mormont just has it, like, is not that they don't want the character. Obviously, they do want the character, but I feel like in some ways they're just completing their obligation to release the Kickstarter only model as a non-Kickstarter model, so that they can put it to bed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah. So, any more comments you want to make on the stocks? I mean, we only know names, and all the names are confirmed, by the way, from the box description, which has been put up with the stuff as well. So there's no speculation as to who they are. Obviously, what they are, that's a little bit more open for speculation.
The sculpts are nice. Like, they are. They're good stuff. It's the level of quality that we expect these days with a modern hero box. Yeah, I think good stuff. I do particularly like Karstark. He does look the part. And I think that Brynden has gained some much needed weight since the Kickstarter edition, where he's an incredibly small and skinny model.
So is his horse. That's the weird thing.
Yeah,
everything like
it's really flat, and so's he. Like it's all just got squished. Like it's a much better model. So that's good stuff.
So then, we'll open up to what you'll find infinitely more interesting and you'll probably won't shut up about. And actually, I do have a couple of comments about this myself. This box here. So, strangely enough, the Lannister Hero Box 3. Well, do you know who these are, actually? There's a question.
Oh, I think so. Mountain That Rides.
Obvious.
Is his name Robert Strong? Is that what is it? It is Robert. Is it Robert Strong or is it just Sir Strong or the Mountain?
It's the unconfirmed resurrected version of the Mountain in the books. In the TV show, it is the Mountain resurrected. Yes, Robert Strong. Yep.
It's called right. His first name is Robert Strong. Bottom, right lower is Kevin Lannister.
Yep.
Mamie Jamie.
Yeah.
That's Tommen and Cersei.
Yep.
Qyburn. And then is this somebody Marbrand?
Yeah.
Adam
Marbrand. Yeah.
Adam Marbrand. Yeah.
Now, for those of you who don't know, obviously Kevin Lannister, we talked about previously, I think when we talked about speculation, Kevin Lannister is like a must. The uncle of the Lannister family who takes over from Tywin. Spoilers, I don't care. After he dies, and Kevin Lannister is a very interesting character. He's less like stern and less like forthwith than Tywin is, but he actually has a lot of like if Tywin wasn't alive, which obviously he doesn't, Kevin actually has a lot of respect among the Lannisters and the family and things. It's just that Tywin, his older brother, remember rightly, is ultimately just better at everything than Kevin is. But he has a lot of he's much more caring of the kids than Tywin ever was, which is interesting. Not like we care about how that comes in the battlefield. But yeah, so that's Kevin. It's great to see him. Qyburn is one of the most interesting characters in Game of Thrones because he really does, like, I mean, what do you know about Qyburn? The fact that he's basically a maester who failed.
Yeah. He doesn't have a chain, right?
No,
he doesn't.
He's the closest you get to like a quite literally like a mad scientist. Outside of pyromancer level, absolutely mad scientist. So yeah,
Jesse's right. Adam Marbrand looks. I thought it as well. Like it looks like he comes from the Conan universe. Is it just his hair, or is he wearing something over his head? Like he looks like he's wearing some kind of headdress thing. Like he has a fur. It looks like he has a fur animal on his head, like the way they wear like a lion's head over their head, and it could be a lion. Now that I said it, like I didn't actually mean Lannister lion. I meant the way you get like, almost in like Gladiator, where he has that, where he has that like lion helmet that goes over his head.
I thought it looked
his hair, isn't it?
It looked a little bit like he's got like a bandana, like a Rambo bandana underneath.
Yeah,
I agree.
It like pushes his hair up, that makes it kind of come all poofy like that. Yeah. He has a definite Conan look about him.
So here's a random
Is he big?
question.
Is he big? Should I know him? Should I care?
In the TV series, I think he appears in a background of one scene. Maybe he's basically not in the TV series, from what I remember. But yes, he is absolutely massive within the books or the lore of the books. He's basically Tywin's main man when it comes to like actual knights. You know, if Tywin was going to get a bunch of knights together that weren't the Kingsguard and it, and Jamie, he's getting Adam Marbrand.
Yeah.
Like he's Tywin's like one of his go-to guys to get stuff done. Um, so yeah, in terms of that, that's all I really know about Adam Marbrand from what I remember. Um, but he's quite prominent within the Lannister circles of being pretty damn good at what he does. Um,
Yep.
so yeah, definitely. Um, yeah, Adam Marbrand is a great inclusion actually. I'm glad they went for someone like that, given that he's not in the TV show. That's a good calling to the books, obviously. Similarly with Kevin, who isn't given much screen time in the TV show. Um, I mean, the big one we've got to talk about is Robert Strong, right there,
Yeah.
prominently in the middle. Um, there is speculation, and I'll see what you think here. Some people have been saying that this is Robert Strong, Kingsguard version. Now,
Okay. I
obviously,
mean, he
when
looks like he has Kingsguard-ish armor, right?
yep. So in the TV show, the books actually kind of just get here, kind of. But Cersei needs a champion. In the TV show, there's a missing member of the Kingsguard, and he's made a member of the Kingsguard, right? Um, in the TV show, it's not. Oh, sorry, in the books, it's not as simple as that. But that's the long and short of it. Um, if this is an alternative Kingsguard, of course, being that before he comes that he does have some period, but could we see this as a potential inclusion within Joffrey lists? Or not? Might be the vice versa. Maybe you can't include him in Joffrey lists because Robert Strong wasn't about in the time where Joffrey was about.
Yeah, but they don't really normally impose those kind of list restrictions, right? Like
Yeah, no, they don't.
they just mostly say a character can only exist once, so we assume this it might be called like Gregor. This might be called Gregor Clegane, Sir Robert Strong, maybe.
Or he'll have the Cold Hand rules, where it says Cold Hand can't be included in the
Or
same army
just,
spending.
the straight cold hands rule, which is this is Sir Robert Strong, cannot be included in an army that includes Gregor Clegane, right? Like that. Either way round, they've shown precedent for either. I doubt that. I mean, like, I doubt that there's going to be more extreme list building requirements because we just don't see them. Even though there are characters that never coexist. There are characters that kind of like don't come around until others are dead or those kind of things. So I'd be, I mean, like you'd be more likely to have something allows him and everything else, like he's disallowed until something. So just Nobnurb says maybe you've got to have Qyburn before Robert Strong becomes available. I don't see a lot of if this then that, then if this then that. Like, thankfully, because I don't think that it makes things better.
No, yeah, I agree. I don't think it necessarily does. You move into like timeline ruling, which is just difficult and hard, and it doesn't add anything to the game anyway. But yeah, no, interesting. I didn't think about the Qyburn inclusion. There's something that just didn't occur to me, and that would actually make a little bit of sense if we think about something like the Sam Gilly interaction and the Arya Jaqen interaction that we have. For Stark, so maybe there is going to be an inclusion like that, and that's actually very interesting. If Qyburn ends up being an attachment or an NCU, like the comparative value that you take Qyburn as an NCU, which allows the attachment version of Robert Strong, where Robert might be very good value for points cost, but Qyburn might be comparatively bad.
Yeah.
So it might be a way of Lannisters actually moving away from the tactics board being their main vessel, whereas you can have this effective attachment at a low cost, in the same way that Victarion is, for something like Greyjoy's. Could he have Relentless? It seems very fitting for a guy who's basically dead and doesn't die.
Yeah, like characters with Relentless is the best place for it. I don't know. I hope that Relentless has a bit of a tweak in general before this box comes out, but we'll find out. We'll see. We'll see. I think it's quite good. A little bit sad that there's no mounted commander, unless we're going to suddenly see Mountain That Rides become a mounted commander. I wouldn't hold out loads of hope. Maybe there's still a bit of hope there. But when you think about how many, mounted units there are in the Lannister army right now, and how prevalent they are in use and stuff like that, you kind of want one. I've wanted one for a while. Mounted Tywin, mounted Kevin, mounted Jamie. Everybody, that Jamie needs more versions. But yeah, I'm pretty pleased with the box. Again, Tom and Cersei feels maybe like it was supposed to be an NCU commander. I don't know where Tom and Cersei will fall. I hope they won't become an on-field commander, because it just won't be right.
Yeah, no, you're right.
I'm thinking Kevin, and I don't see who else.
Well, I'm going to throw it out there, and I'm going to say there is nothing stopping Tommen being an off-field commander. Okay, an NCU commander. They're going to bring them back, but I raise you this one. They've broken the mold, if you will, and they've proven that they can do it, and it actually isn't good when they've done it, with Mag. Mag as a commander is 9 points, or 9 points without being a commander. He's not a free commander. Okay, his upgrade is free. Okay.
So you reckon they're going to bring back point-costed NCU commanders?
What's the harm in making a commander a 4-point NCU that can be your commander? There's actually...
I'll tell you what the harm is.
Go on.
Same harm that a 9-point Mag commander costs.
Yep.
You've lost a 2 to 3 points worth of attachment.
Yes.
Because that's what a commander currently brings.
Yeah. So that's where you could, in theory, with the tactics cards they bring, or the effect they have, you can afford to up that a bit. You make the tactics card better to outweigh that potentially. I'm just making an assumption, right?
Not having it.
Not having it. What happens if he is?
Then my bet is on him being significantly under or overpowered.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. He falls either side.
If he is, then they've shown repeatedly that when they take a really new big step like that it's nearly always outside of the realms of everything else, that they haven't quite understood the impact that it has. Mm-hmm. So for example, just from your point, what's wrong with him being like a 4-point NCU commander? It's like, well, because I've lost 3 points worth of value here. Do you know what I mean? Look at some of the other commanders, like maybe, look at Othel, not because of his cards. What I mean is look at Othel. He brings Hardened and like another ability, right? Like, that's a great attachment. I don't even know what the other ability is.
Spotter. That was the rerolls on your siege machines.
He brings Hardened. Look at Black Tide. Or Dagmare. Do you know what I mean? These are great 2-point attachment combos. You'd be hard pressed to put them in at 2 points. They're 2.5-point attachments, mm-hmm. and you're giving them for free. And now you're going to tell me that I have to pay 4 points for my NCU. But if you tell me that he costs 2 points, I'm like, well, yeah, I'm definitely 100% going to buy an extra activation for 2 points.
Yeah.
So it's so impossibly hard to get that balance right, because you can't offer free NCUs. You can't even offer discounted NCUs because I don't want to buy that 2-point attachment for 2 points. But then if you're not going to give him to me at all, if I'm going to have to pay full price for a commander, then I'm like, well, I'll have the free attachment back, please. Do you know what I mean?
What if you made the NCU cost like 4, right? But gave it the equivalent cost. Obviously, the tactics card's away for a moment, but the equivalent cost of something like a 6-point NCU. Now I know 6-point NCUs are a dubious cost, like opportunity cost thing.
Yeah,
But it
possible.
obviously it's a list building choice. You could still opportunity take that. Would
Yeah,
that be?
yeah, it could,
Mhm.
but
It's hard
they've
to get the
gotten
balance
better.
right.
They've gotten better at making like high cost NCUs sort of worth it. They've started to understand that the difference between a 3-point NCU and a 5-point NCU is huge.
Mhm.
The difference between a 4 and a 6, like people use Tywin, even though I don't. But it's possible. It's possible that you could make them in an incredibly powerful NCU commander for 4 points. I'd still be super. I'd still say the likelihood of them to miss the mark is large, and commanders are so important,
Mhm.
and you only get one of them. And if you're just a little bit too good, it's everywhere. And if you're bad, then you're nowhere.
I, in my head, I don't even care how bad this is for the game. In my head, I really want to see him have an ability that's once per game, and you roll a d6 for every unit on the board, and it takes that many wounds. As in, like Cersei just blowing up the wildfire. Tommen dies. He just that NCU is removed from the game, and every unit, including the Lannister ones, just everything takes a d6 worth of wounds, and just it would be a terrible mechanic. Game balance would be awful, but who cares? He just blew the board up with wildfire, quite literally. Uh, and we could even get Bartender to do her own animation in TTS where you press a button and the board explodes. And yeah, that would be terrible. Don't actually do that. It's just a thing. Um, One last point with this box, right? Obviously, I don't know how many cards were due in the box.
Mhm.
I'm sure Mikkel or one of the other guys who has the link handier rather than I did. I closed it. The what was I going to say? How many commanders we can expect? I think there's enough. I've actually got it up here. There's 23 cards. So with there being 7 units, 23
Mhm.
cards, 7,
Should leave
23,
16. Two
16,
commanders.
2 commanders. There's only 2 commanders. There can't possibly be 3 commanders in this box.
Kevin and
Probably Adam Marbrand.
yeah, it's not Jamie unless they're going really left field. It's not Tommen. It's not Kyburn.
Mhm.
I don't like Robert Strong for it.
No.
Surely not. Like how he doesn't command, right? Like can he talk? uh,
That's a good point, actually.
so okay, I'm gonna go Marbrand, but I would rather it was mountain that rides.
Of course you would. Because actually, to be fair, everyone wants the mountain that rides. I mean, everyone wanted the mountain that ride cavalry attachment to be amazing, so he could run around with his like Clegane brigands and just pillage the wilderness, like as is classic of Harrenhal. Um, but A, no. B, Clegane brigands. C, there's no mounted commander attachment or commander version worth taking. Yes, the 3-pointer exists, and he's shite. um, so yeah, it is sad that we don't see that. I agree. Certainly it would definitely take them in a different direction. Yes. So um,
Looking forward to it though. Yeah,
mhm,
happy enough. Good box.
yeah, and also for what it's worth, okay, you get one less commander, but you get 7 models
You
compared to
get
start to
7 models,
6.
and one of them's a massive mounted model. Like I know there's I know there's horsefish, but like yeah, I feel like Starks can be maybe feel like a tiny bit shortchanged by only receiving 6 models. Nearly all modern boxes include 7, right? I think.
I think most of them do, or if not, they might have multiples. But yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I guess the trade-off here is that like Maim Jamie, although yes, he's one more model, he is basically just one thing. He's only got one version, as far as we're aware. He exists as
Yeah.
the enemy attachment, and that's it. Whereas I'm guessing Starks will have more versatility with the attachments they do have.
Yeah.
Cool. So that was Lannisters and Stark Hero Box 3, which we've seen, and the scheduled release date, I believe, is for March. I'm going to throw it out there and say,
Oh yeah.
that's a no.
Yeah, I mean, all right. See you in Singapore in March, maybe.
Maybe. Yeah. Which brings us on to the second piece of news, or the second release, which came out in odds and sods in random different places, all from one person, but this is traditional. Come out in difficulty, and I will thank Lockerbie, for actually putting them in one place for me. But as it turns out, earlier today, the A Song of Ice and Fire French builder put them up as well. So they have been now seen by a lot more people. I didn't want to share them on Facebook mainly because it was an absolute nightmare trying to share something that everyone could see. Now, I am going to be super honest to everybody here. The image that I'm about to use is crap.
Graphic
Yeah, it's graphic crap.
content upcoming.
Are you ready? There we go. Look at that high quality image.
Love it.
We can see the information. That's all that matters. So it is a 4-point infantry unit. It is a solo. Comes on a solo base. There are images of the models. If I get them up. It's I guess you'd call it a piece of shit in terms of its stats. It's 4 dice on 5s, which is like last rank poor fellow level bad. It's 6 armor, but it has got 4 morale. 5 moves still, it's not slow. And then it has Drowned Gods Fanatics innate rules.
A lot of rules.
It's a lot of rules. We'll come to the order in a second, but base rules, 4 wounds on the model. So it's a 4 wound solo. Fine. It has a maximum panic fail for only 1 wound, similar to the Giants 2, but now scaled down to 1, which is an interesting take. And finally, it has the Giant rule of only suffering 1 wound for every 2 unblocked hits from any attack or effect. We finally come to the order. It's another start of turn order. We see these more and more regularly now. This is becoming in fact, I think it is the most crowded activation space for orders and triggers, which is worth considering. But it's any turn, not friendly, so this does have a plus side there to it. You target another friendly Greyjoy infantry unit in short range, and you choose to restore 2 wounds. It can reroll attack dice this turn, or enemies that attack it become vulnerable. What's your take there?
My first take is I don't like infantry solos.
I'll come on to why I don't like them as well, but you're right. Okay, go on.
I just don't like the design space in general. I don't like giving something 4 wounds and then saying, oh, and you take half hits. Oh, and you also only take 1 wound from panic. Oh, and so you've hardly got any wounds, but you die really, really slowly. It's the game's got a great mechanic. It's 12 models to a tray that die in ranks and change your stats as their ranks change. Why is this not a unit of 12 models? Don't get it. Don't agree. So for that reason, I don't like it.
We just got an upgrade there. Shout out to Bartender. What a legend. He's just sent those over live.
This is a very crowded space in Greyjoys. They're 4 points, right?
Yeah.
So personally, I think that Trappers are better. I think that Archers are better. I don't think the Greyjoys, 2 wounds healed isn't like a huge thing for Greyjoys, in my opinion. Reroll attack dice. Yeah, okay, maybe. I just think that they're a really awkward unit. I'm not. It doesn't sit comfortably with me. The whole unit design, and what's going on with it. I don't want to field them. I don't really care if my opponent does, because I think it's no better or worse than archers or trappers. Maybe if like if those 4-point archers, 4-point trappers are nerfed in some kind of way, they become 5 points, they lose some stats or something, then maybe these guys become more viable. I mean, Jesse says 4.12 wound units are generally bad for the game, so he prefers this method. But I totally disagree, because this method of 4 wounds, which like have like a whole load of like hoops to jump through to do a wound, or a whole load of limits to how you do wounds, basically create a really polarized structure to the way they take damage, right? Damage becomes really, really like stepped. You either do 1 wound, or you do 2 wounds, or you do 3 wounds, right? Or you're a dragon and you instant kill it, right? Or
you're Gregor,
all these kind of things.
You half kill it with ease.
Yeah. And it makes the ability to put a money bag's 3 wound heal on them, just like, hey, you're back to full health now again. As opposed, it really changes the dynamic of the game. Like, I'm just not into the way that solos are being used to replace what a unit design space effectively should be. Like, it has all the hallmarks that it should be a unit. I also just don't like that this is, in some modes, this is a 4-ranked unit. This is a 4-ranked unit, and it can contest anybody that it wants, or steal a token off of anybody that it wants, as long as it goes last in the round. Like,
yes.
why are we making 4-point solos the number one thing in the game to steal tokens, when in any mode where like ranks count for contesting, or ranks count for taking the objective off somebody?
This unit alone actually says to me, I'm going straight out, almost say it straight up. This makes a complete mockery of Baratheons, and I don't mean from Baratheon list building being shit. But if you think about what Baratheon's core concept is like, we're defensive and we can then control. And yes, that has issues, but now there's a unit which is cheaper than anything that they will field that's defensive. And you could even argue those defensive techniques. Oh, yeah, I've got a panic test that you'll have to take. And it's like, yeah, but I'm testing on a 4+ base. And even if I fail, I only take 1 wound. Who gives a shit? And it gets better than that, because not only if I fail do I do that, but if you got any form of like clapback from hits, well, I'm only rolling 4 dice on 5s. If I'm charging with a reroll, I'm more likely to get 1 or 2 hits, meaning that I'm probably going to take a wound from the 2 hits back. But if I hit with anything more, if I hit with 3 hits and I do 1 hit back, I don't care, I'm a giant. I don't even take a wound back from your attack. So now I'm 4 ranks, I'm stuck in combat with you. And like you're saying, you're just taking objectives, controlling objectives from something that, I mean, and that's what a defensive faction is supposed to do. And and I know we already know Baratheons are bad. We already know that Baratheons struggle with this kind of gameplay. But the point is, this is exactly the design space why Baratheons are struggling.
Yeah.
And they seem to be pushing it further rather than backing out of this design space, and that's a worry.
And we've already known for a while that one of the biggest ways that Free Folk were getting wins was by out-activating their opponent and then contesting or taking objectives late in the round with no response. So end of the round, you just charge something to contest it on purpose with no intention of ever really fighting it or beating it or winning that combat. And now you've just given the faction which has the highest activation count natively right now another 4-point option. And not only is it a 4-point option, it's a 4-point option in some, not every, but the majority of game modes. it begins the game with 4 ranks.
Yeah.
Right. And it can heal ranks so quickly and get ranks back so fast. It's a balance wise. I'm like, are they good? I'm not like, oh my god, they're a good. Like, oh, this is going to break the game. They're like suddenly so amazing. I just don't like the design space. I don't like the direction that they create. And this is interesting that like they're not a million miles away from Freedmen. And I'll be fielding Freedmen at Scottish GT. I use them, sporadically in targs. I'm not like, oh my god, they're amazing, you should use them, or they're trash tier, don't use them. They're balanced. I don't like them. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I still don't like their design space. I still don't like the fact. I hate the models. I hate three weird models standing in a tray together. That's just weird. Like,
they do look a bit weird.
They look stupid. They look shit. Do you know what I mean? And I think that these guys look shit. I've only seen some blurry, distant, just a photo of some models in a box, but like they look crap. They're so uninteresting to me. One of the things I loved the most about this game was the rank and file of 12 models in a tray and the simplicity that it brought versus, like old Warhammer Fantasy where you're like, oh, am I 5 wide? Am I 7 wide? Am I going to be 10 wide and be a horde? Am I going to be like, how many ranks deep am I? Like, and then you take models off and like the tray changes size, and then like whether or not you're in combat, you can like leave combat by accident because models lose. And it was just like, hey, here's your tray. It's this size, and then models fill up and get removed from it, but your tray never changes size. And then you're just like, oh, but now you're just a solo and you've got like multiple wounds on one thing. I'm just like, nah.
So I'm going to say something a bit controversial. Nearly 60 people viewing. Amazing. Thanks all for turning out. Bit controversial, right? In that I've not been a huge fan of most of the solo sculpts for a short period. Like the War Machine sculpts, things like the chariots, they're great. Yeah, fine, whatever. The Harakars were a bit weird. The lions didn't look like lions. To put it bluntly honest, they didn't feel like lions.
They're a bit derpy.
But even Mag and 1-1, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Mag and 1-1 are bad, but I didn't like the sculpts, right? So much so, and I will point this out now rather than doing it later, like I've opted to paint Mag for, just like you were painting your army up, I thought, I'm not going to paint an army up, I'm not going to lie to myself, but I was going to paint Mag up for Always Winter, and I looked at him the other night, and I took him apart, because I actually didn't like his pose. I didn't want to paint him as was, which is actually kind of sad. And I feel like these guys are the same. I feel like the first thing I'd do with these drowned men, if I was actually putting them in an army, making it look good, is I'd take them all off the base and do something else with it. You know what I mean? Same with freedmen. I'm more inclined. They feel, and it sounds good in a way, they feel like hobby sculpts.
Yeah.
Not straight up good sculpts that you want to play on the table as is. Which is actually really sad because the beauty of this game was some of the sculpts are fantastic on their own. Well, no, it is a shameless plug, Weasel, but the only reason I said it is because I think it's relevant, and it's exactly what I would do with Drowned Men. I would convert them. I would never field them naked if I was going to actually have a nice army.
I agree with Martin, and it goes way back to when we first saw the Freedmen, and back then I was pretty insistent as well that I think that whatever solution you come up with, I felt like the War Machine tray was about right. I felt that either you should be fielding freedmen as like they're like infantry cavalry of like, hey, look, here's 3 circles that go on a cavalry tray. Like you could put 4. So just like cavalry, you could actually just have 12 models. But what do you really gain? So actually the halfway that we kind of came to, and like I really do enjoy the idea, is that it's a War Machine tray turned sideways. Like it has a large frontage, it has a short depth. They don't fight in a proper rank and file way. Because they're a haphazard unit. Like they don't have to be perfectly lined up. They can be a bit all over the place. And I just think that was so much better for the size of the unit and like the space on the table that it should take up. And I just think that it really detracts from what a solo is when we start to create these units. So
yeah, like,
you know,
they should be unordered. an
when it
unordered
comes to
mess.
this,
Yeah.
yeah. When it comes to this, Owen's right. I am just a bit of a hater. Like I can't tell. Like I can't tell you, oh, this is unbalanced. I can't tell you this is terrible for the game. Like for this particular reason, I just don't like it. I just feel like it's pulling the game away from some of its core best parts, which was when it first came out. It was so clean and well designed and like interactive rank and file game, and it's just moving away from that in ways that I'm like, did we gain anything? Did we gain something as we got further away from that really nice identity?
I'm going to agree with Mikel in chat though. If things like this 4 rank solo trays help for balance in the long run, and it ends up being a useful tool, I don't necessarily disagree that the design space is a bad one. If it, like ultimately, if it's helping balance, you might not like it as much, but it's helping the game. I think the thing for me and Carl at the moment is there's no way this helps balance. Greyjoys are not struggling. Um, they are up there. They can compete with the big dogs. Okay, they don't win all the time, but they can compete. We've seen Greyjoy lists actually have a respectable win rate against Night's Watch. We've seen Greyjoy lists be able to tackle Targaryens and dragons in ways because of the activation advantage. We've seen them do fine against free folk. They struggle, if anything, against Lannisters. Of all of the factions, it's Lannisters they struggle against most, but it's still a positive net for them if played at the higher levels with the higher level builds. But yeah. Interesting. Tom says, you guys talk how we solved and simple the game is in some respects. Yeah, changing bases, playing with costs, etc., does help change. Of course it does. Yeah, of course it does. I think the difference is that does it push the change in the direction that makes the game better? What we've always said, and what's always very prevalent, change isn't good. And by that I mean not all change is good. You want change, but not all change can be a better thing. And I agree, you do need to test it. Testing the water with these things, freedmen, whatever, fine. They did it once. It didn't make a splash. They've done it again, and it's like, it's as if to say, oh, the first one didn't do what we wanted, so what we'll do is we'll completely change it up and release it again, and hopefully it'll be better this time. And it's like, that's not how you should do iterative design like that.
Yeah. So actually, Weasel and Leak Teddy both actually hit the nail on the head for me, which are one, when you fill the board with these single circle solos, it starts to really feel like a skirmish game and not not like a rank and file game anymore. And I don't like that. I think that A Song of Ice and Fire was the best rank and file game there was, right? Like with elements of card gameplay, elements of tactics board, all these new fresh ideas. Those ideas aren't actually groundbreakingly new in the skirmish space. Like there are tons of skirmish games that already do those things. I like this because it's a rank and file game that does that. The more you muddy the waters of whether or not it still is a rank and file game, the less I'm like, hey, this is standout the best game in its own genre. Not because the game's worse, but because it's not in its own genre anymore. Like it's starting to gray the edges too much as to whether or not it's still a rank and file game. And then the ineffable thing for me, which Teddy puts in words, is it fails the visual test of, does this look like an army, right? And you want your opponent's army, when put on the board, particularly when painted, to be like, hey, look, we're fighting two armies against each other here. And when you end up with just tons of like little trays that just like walk around by themselves, you lose that effect. And it's really subtle, and it is hard to put in words, and that's why like he's so right when it's just like it is. Does it look like an army? You know when it looks like an army, and you know when it doesn't. And that's the thing that fails for me with these guys, and that's why I don't like Freedmen either.
That's actually one of the things that that fundamentally where monster and war machine trays actually work as their intended purpose, in that they are slightly different. You have, say, a giant as a centerpiece as the army, and it has a different tray. A mammoth, for example, a catapult has a different tray because it is standing out from the others. It's saying this is a different piece. It serves a different role within the army, or it's a centerpiece. They're very much what the Warhammer Fantasy stuff used to be like, right? In that you'd have your army of your rank and flank and stuff, and then you'd have this centerpiece. And it's okay to have centerpieces that armies revolve around that are different, but it's when the centerpieces become the norm that you don't want. Like, if you told me there was a giant army, yeah, that's fine. I can expect that. I respect that. If you told me there was a mammoth army, I'd be like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Like, you don't have lots of mammoths. That doesn't make sense. If you told me there was a scorpion army, I don't like the idea that you can take a bunch of scorpions with offal. I think it's just stupid. Like, what's your army? 6 scorpions? That's not an army. That's a local garage. So yeah, yeah.
But you know what? Like, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. I'm not super interested in them, and we'll just see on the balance side of things. I think that they really do sit in like point of, if archers and trappers still exist, then these guys just aren't a big deal either way. Like, you might create some synergies. They might be really difficult for a particular army. They'll be really easy for other armies. Anybody that can just like put through auto wounds, they're just dead. Anybody that can't, anybody that like keeps rolling 3 hits will end up only ever doing 1 wound. So, like, it's okay. It's all right. It's not going to break the game. There have been worse things. I just, went off on a bit of a side rant that I just don't like it.
Yeah. No, yeah. We will have a little look at the models. I got a picture of the models here. Have you seen the models yet? I'll take that as no.
Sorry. I've seen this. I was reading the chat for a second. Yeah,
nice.
I've seen this image already.
Yeah.
Like I say, three hobos on a circle. Makes the Freedmen box look a bit like you got ripped off.
Yeah, classic. It does. I will say, at least I've got this going for it. The poses that the 3 sets of 3 blokes are actually all different. I don't know if all the blokes are different, but certainly the 3 sets are different. So you are getting 3 semi-unique, maybe fully unique actual.
So the way the Freedmen work is there are, I think, 4 different sculpts which appear always in different orientations on the 3 different things. Now, these guys all look similar-ish, but a bit different. They may well fall into, so I think probably this guy who's in the left-hand side of the top right is probably also the guy who's the center middle of the bottom left. So I think that we are probably seeing the same sculpt a few times over, but it's not for sure. Like, it's questionable whether or not top right at the back that we can just see the weapon being held up above the head, whether or not he's the same guy as the bottom left on the left. It's really questionable. There might be loads of sculpts. They might all look subtly different, but actually be the same, or they all might be entirely unique sculpts, which would be great. It's nice to have that variety. The other guys look weird though. They also look huge.
Yeah, we'll come on to those in a second.
Either that or
right. Stephen's right in the chat. Looks like a very small pub fight. That's exactly what they look like. They don't look. It literally looks like a bunch of guys have rolled out of a pub. Yeah. On the note of them being infantry, just a quick thing on that. Coordination tactics works on them, and I'm not going to delve into it right now. But innate abilities with coordination and tactics, yes, it's a debate. Yes, it's a discussion. No one knows the answer. If you coordinate this drowned men unit with a unit of bowmen, for example, does that mean the unit of bowmen only has 4 wounds? And the simple answer is no, because that's an innate ability, innate to the actual unit itself. You can't give it. But then, can you give innate giant effect? Can you give innate maximum 1 fail to another unit? Who the sod knows at that point? There needs to be a discussion. If you can do that, I can very much see these guys being a one-of in a list with Dagmar, because you are 100% just rolling them around outside behind a tanky unit and go, oh, I'm pretty sure my opponent's going to hit me this turn with something big. There you go. 2 hits and 1 for failed panic test, please.
Yeah.
That would be savage.
That would be savage. Onto like something like hyper aggressive, like or just
Reavers.
Hey, onto your Reavers, or but
a flame men
charge. Coordination tactics is very hard to time for defensive purposes.
It is.
So but I mean, if it comes down to like the last turn of the round and you know that they're attacking them, then you're just like, okay, sorry,
lol. But yeah, there's the whole discussion there. There's also another thing in that I can see these guys being cancerous, like we talked about in like a 10 activation Greyjoy list. I actually am worried that you're going to see a 10 activation Greyjoy list that wouldn't work against everything, but like we talked about, they can just roll up to objectives and contest them. And you just have you have a bunch of drowned men, maybe 1 or 2 drowned men, maybe some trappers with Asher if you really care, Victarion and Reavers, and then a bunch of bowmen. And you just shoot into the combat. Who gives a shit? You're testing on 4, and if you fail, you're only taking 1 wound. Who gives a fuck? Just shoot the shit out of whatever's in combat with them. You know. Anyway. Depression.
Sunday's here. Sunday, you're gonna have to watch back, mate. We just spent half an hour talking about the fact that they're great for contesting and why we don't like that.
We will load up the other image now. Now,
yeah.
When people saw this, the internet went actually slightly mad from the people who saw it and were like, "Oh my god, that's amazing!" And then reality hit them.
2 points of trash here. 2 points of trash here.
The problem is, the cost. Yes, this is 2 points. No one knew the cost. Everyone.
It's an identical ability to a free folk ability. Do you know, I know that Greyjoys have great attachments, but you couldn't give an unnamed Greyjoy attachment the same ability that you gave a free folk one and charge twice as much for it. Like literally exactly the same. Not even like it's that ability plus another ability, which is what the Night's Watch seem to get half the time, or just a better combination of abilities. Like, you have 2 abilities, I have 2 abilities, but like my secondary is just better than your secondary. No. If you were just going to charge half as much for the same thing, then it would have been,
honestly, I'd have flipped the table.
I don't think that it works in Free Folk. I don't think it's going to have any significant synergies with Greyjoys. I don't think this is going to have any impact or any play at 2 point. I'd happily have somebody prove me wrong.
I will say at this point that this unit, this attachment, and the recent changes that we've seen to Greyjoys, like in terms of the releases, I was excited. I was keen. The stuff looks really good. I'm really happy. But actually, this triggered something in me that I hadn't thought of before.
Deep dark things.
At least at the core understanding, I knew it already, but it was like, hang on, this just, I'll go for it. It really feels that they've taken, we already knew Greyjoy could be Horde mentality style, but it really is, they've just taken the Horde mentality idea that Free Folk had and completely just given it to Greyjoy, and Free Folk's new mentality is now monster type stuff. And the Horde mentality that was designed, the original Free Folk design space that they then say wasn't, has actually just shifted to Greyjoy. They haven't gotten rid of the design space. They've just given it to a different faction, and it's something like this has just pissed me off because they've just been given a commander which has got carbon copy cards, but with arguably better units to use on them. They've just given them a literal carbon copy attachment that already wasn't getting used, but who cares? Do you know what I mean? Like, it really feels that the space is now being owned by that. And everything we've seen from Free Folk that's been released lately, when was the last unit you saw released for Free Folk? When was the last infantry unit? Because the last thing, chariots, giants, mammoths.
Yeah, I agree. I agree, and I do believe that anybody who played Free Folk for those reasons and felt attached to that playstyle can feel like Greyjoys are stealing it, right? I do agree with that. I would say that's nothing new though. They've been recycling styles and rules and tactics cards as long as the game's been around. You know, like lots of Lannister players were super offended when, like, what they felt was their core identity in a card counterplot was given to not just one other faction but two other factions.
Yeah.
Now, Simon believed that if they give it in a commander card, then it's absolutely fair game, right? Like, as long as their base decks don't share cards, and I don't think any base decks share cards anymore. What they do, whereas actually there used to be some base decks, didn't Targs and Starks previously share a identical card in their base deck?
Free Folk and Stark both share Swift Advance. Targ and
they did.
Stark now share Swift and Swift Reposition. It's the same thing.
Right.
But Harmag, for example, gives it as a Free Folk card as one of the commander cards.
Now, so it's super common for them to decide that what they want is a commander to basically give elements of a different faction into a certain faction, right?
Yeah.
It just feels like every time they look for a Greyjoy, like, new identity, new role, new thing, they decide to steal it from Free Folk. Like, that just, like, the Greyjoys just seem to be leaning on and pulling all their copy mechanics from Free Folk, whereas in the past, a faction has stolen its commander-based identities from loads of different places. Whereas, like, it just seems to be whichever bit of Free Folk you want, you can find a commander in Greyjoys to steal it with. You know, if you want coordination tactics, you can have it. Like, I'd almost at some point expect, like, there to be a Greyjoy commander that brings Endless Horde. You know, like, I know that there already basically exists. What you're on? You're on Balon. Balon can literally steal a card, but Balon can steal anything. So, like, it's not quite a fair comparison. But like, I can almost imagine there's a new commander that's like, hey, you get to put a unit of bowmen on the board, or, you know, put a unit of trappers on the board, or redeploy a unit that's already happened. That's how much they're like, oh, Greyjoys need a new style, a new identity, or where are we going to get them from? Oh, Free Folk have got this great one. Shall we use that? You know, like, it just seems to happen again and again and again. So I do think that, you know, like, Free Folk can feel like they've lost what made them unique. But it was actually interesting that I felt in the past that Free Folk were the only unique faction. Every other faction already cross-bled across each other. They already stole each other's units. They all shared neutrals. They all shared each other's tactics decks. As more and more commanders came out, more and more cross-faction tactics cards were being used. You just saw other people's abilities reimagined. What you thought was somebody's core identity just suddenly gets reimagined as a commander inside another faction. That's been true of everyone. And Free Folk just seem to, like, exist by themselves. And that's why I think that Free Folk players feel like Greyjoys are just stealing all their identity and taking it, because it hasn't happened to Free Folk before, whereas now it is, and it is happening at an alarming rate.
I think the weird thing as well is it's all happening in one faction. Like it's not. If it was like Baratheons had a card that was like basically Endless Horde, where you brought on a unit of Wardens, I would be like, oh, that's like Endless Horde. But I wouldn't feel bad about that because it's like, you know what? Like, it's a bad example because I can't really think of any law reasons for it. I don't know. Davos could have it for like smuggling a unit of troops in or something. I don't know. But like, I can see it. I can see all of those kind of things. Like, I can see why Greyjoys would have elements of the raider, like the raider mentality. I get that. But then it's like, yeah, okay, so have like sure elements of it here and there, but it's for have to have like the core builds. It's like, oh, this does this, but it's better. Like, it still baffles me in the absolute skull that we're still talking about Greyjoys, and every time I face Greyjoy Bowman and every time I field them, I absolutely laugh at my opponent, and I put two fingers up to my opponent if I'm playing against it. When Greyjoys turn around and say, yeah, my 4-point Bowman have got 5 armor, and I'm sitting watching Stark Bowman with 6, who are 2 points more, and I'm like, what the fuck is this shit? That still baffles my skull.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, Greyjoy archers could easily be 5 and still be fielded. Not at the rate that they are currently fielded, but they would find a place. People would field them. Being like 2 points cheaper than any other long range unit in the entire game is kind of crazy. Like, you can't buy a long range unit for 5 points. Doesn't exist, flat out, unless I'm having an absolute skip of the mind. There isn't one in the whole game. Everything's 6 or above, except for this one unit that costs 4 points, and it hasn't even got the worst stats in that category. Like, it has the same attack profile basically as a 6-point Lannister crossbowman unit. It has better armor than the 6-point, Stark archers. It has rerolls to units when it attacks from the flank, and on top of that, unlike all of the others, it also performs a supporting role in that it gives pillage out to other units. No other ranged unit has that ability to buff other units in and around themselves. So, okay, yeah. So Soren's got me. New Scorpion is 5 points. I'll give him that. That.
Actually, not only does the new Scorpion have long range, but I think you'll find the new Scorpion for 5 points has infinite range. So yeah. You've been done.
Well, and to Hibiscus, the one thing that I was leaving out is there is 5-point spearwives and there is 4-point trappers. So there are other things that compare in the short range category.
Cranigman trackers.
Cranigman.
Remember them?
5 points as
5
well
points,
now. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So there are things in the short range category. That's why I specifically said long range. Because it does matter. Long range is very significant over short range. Like, it really changes the role of the unit.
You know what? With the change to Cranigman trackers as well, they don't even have the. I did think surely they have that maneuver and shoot still.
Yeah,
right?
they can't move and shoot. No.
So if they did, then you could maybe like hybrid count them, but you can't even hybrid count them.
Yeah. Anyway, we've gone on a total ramble. This guy's 2 points. His model is weirdly big, or the Drowned Men solos are weirdly small.
Yeah.
I don't think you'll see play at 2 points.
No, he won't see play, and I can guarantee you he won't see play because he exists already in a faction that has basically the same identity as this, and he doesn't see play. And let's face it, Greyjoys have got better shit to spend 2 points on than this ability. Hey, for 2 points more, you can buy a unit with this ability, and that's an activation.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like when you put it that way, Free Folk have some of the worst attachment economy in the whole game because it was decided that they have raiders and raiders come with adaptive, so they should pay more for their attachments for whatever reason. That seemed acceptable to them. Not that adaptive was already baked into the price of the raider unit itself, but anyway. Free Folk have some of the worst attachments, points per abilities that they bring. And this guy still doesn't see play in their army at that points cost. Greyjoys have some of the best abilities per point cost in the entire game on their attachments, and you're giving them something which doesn't see play in an army which has the worst. When you put it in that perspective, you just can't imagine anybody will field him in a competitive limelight. Like, even if the synergies are better, even if he has a more specific use, he's still not going to be the best point use of 2 points for you.
Maybe someone will try him in Iron Makers and have a 2+ resilient armor, and then everyone will cry because it's like, this unit's better than Stag Knight. Champions of the Stag. Should be. Jeremy says, plays Infinity and War Machine. Having advanced deployment units is huge. Being able to hold back a unit, i.e. Greyjoy, Raider Captains, etc. is huge. It is a massive thing. The problem with that at the moment is that it requires taking the horse to deploy, and that is actually massively, like, it's a huge tempo loss. Even though it would feel like it would gain you so much board position and gain in tempo in that sense, it's such a big tempo loss, especially because horse is contested anyway, because maneuvers are great and field control exists. And me and Carlo were going to touch on field control very briefly from what we discussed on last Friday, but essentially, field control is just one of these things where if you don't draw it, you feel like shit as a Targaryen player and you lose. And if you do draw it, you feel brilliant as a Targaryen player and you win. And it's a bit like Endless Horde for Free Folk, and Endless Horde for Free Folk is a bad thing for the same reason. And we actually think that they're, based on our discussions on Friday, they're necessary things for the game in some senses, but we actually think that they're bad for game health in the long run.
I'd actually be way more interested in a unit that had a start of the first round ability to like take a maneuver. Like, that'd be way better than the current flanking rule. I think that, or something that could choose to, you deploy it, and then if you want, you can choose to just like take it off and deploy it again at the end of deployment. Like, you can, like, it's got like a rule like false deployment or something. You could start to do interesting things with that. The way that outflank works doesn't generate the same kind of positional control that you think it might.
It actually did used to. That's the funny thing.
Yeah.
At 1.6 it did. It's just in 2021 it doesn't. Because of the nature of how tight lists are and where you need to get the points. Anyway, shall we move on to the last piece of news?
Still more.
Now, this piece of news was actually just reminded to me, but don't worry, I was actually going to do it anyway. This is nothing to do with Simon news, right? This is this one, not that one. This one. Hey, there it is. The last piece of news for today is Tabletop Warden. I think they announced it yesterday. They're doing their third design contest, which is fantastic. These have been interesting enough for us to warrant certainly looking at them. We didn't actually ever go back and review. I think we looked at the winners, I think, if I remember rightly. Can't remember. But yeah, it's a really interesting thing, and it's Roos up on the chopping block before. Now, if you've never taken part in Tabletop Warden Community Design Contest, if you don't know what it is, the information's right here, but I'm not going to read it very quickly. They give you a commander in the game, or a character in the game, and your design contest specifications are to design commander cards for this character. So 3 commander cards, potentially a 4th if you can argue about like removing one from the deck. I'm sure that they would allow that. Be creative. The attachment card can be created as well. They're all up for that as well. And the winner gets the
Alt Sculpt Roos, probably.
Alt Sculpt Roos, yes. That's it. I couldn't remember what it's called there. So yeah, that's going live as of yesterday, today. Yes.
All right, here's my entry. Don't steal it, guys. This is patented. You've already, it's already here. He's exactly as he is right now, but all 3 of his cards are a Flayed Men Has No Secrets. 6 a Flayed Men Has No Secrets, plus his current abilities.
No. Let's be super good for balance, right? He has to have an ability where he can give a token out in long range.
Yeah, he probably has Threaten.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But not on activation. That's shit.
Yeah. Threaten, intimidating presence. 3 copies of A Flayed Man Has No Secrets. We can change their names. Don't worry about it.
Actually, sorry. While we're at it, why don't we just get him hardened? That's what everyone seems to get nowadays, anyway.
Yes. Yes.
Oh,
Threaten, hardened, and triple. A Flayed Man Has No Secrets.
A flame man still has no secrets. A flame man
Okay,
yet
how about
again has
this?
no secrets. Go on.
If we're just making busted combos now,
Go on.
how long will it be? I know we almost got one with Dagmar, coordination tactics, Vitarian. How long will it be until we get a commander who just brings Relentless?
Oh, don't break us in half like that.
West Coast Bannerman, yeah, Warcry. Although, I mean, we've already got a commander with Warcry almost in Drogo, but yeah. Relentless and Warcry.
I actually think that they should release a unit that has something like Warcry or Relentless as like the unit ability as a unique ability for only a certain commander, and the commander should have like Warcry, Relentless, or Hardened or whatever, and so you get the full combo of Hardened, Relentless, Warcry, and then I don't know, Intimidating Presence. Fuck it, and they're just absolute go, and you're like, I have 4 2-point abilities. And I'm a 4-point unit. Let's go. That would be absolutely. That would make neutrals playable.
Yeah. Neutrals only commander. Bang. Suddenly the faction's good. Easy. Just like that. Just absolutely overpowered as anything commander, but neutrals only.
That is the best way. This kid says Relentless as a card.
Yeah, you know what? Like, not stupid idea. I mean, also called coordination tactics, but but commanders actually already generically, if they have an attachment version which they pay points for, then often their cards bring what their attachment brought. So it is, like, hey, my attachment brings Warcry, or I'm bought as a commander and I have a card which brings Warcry. So actually, it wouldn't have been crazy if Victarion brought Relentless as a card, except that what essentially happens is I feel like they think that is overrun. That like Relentless and Overrun are what like replaces each other. But anyway, we're on such a tangent.
Actually, for what it's worth, just a last thing I'll say. With Hibiscus saying Relentless is a card, I just thought about the game and how Relentless is a card and what is like Relentless. Now, yes, coordination tactics, joke, but issue commands, right? And the one that charges a unit. Now, issue commands is only issue commands allows an attack or charge, isn't it? Is it? Which is the one that allows a maneuver march or something? It's a maneuver march or retreat, isn't it?
You can definitely give up an attack. There's
Tyrion. Tyrion does it. You do an action, or you activate a unit, but instead something else does a maneuver march or retreat.
Yes.
Tyrion's. I think
so you're giving up a unit's activation for another unit to do. What is now a restricted set of stuff in 1.6.
It was anything.
In 1.6, it was just do anything. Like the other unit does a full activation, can charge, can do whatever. Now it's limited. I forget exactly. Attack is definitely in there, and I think maneuver's in there. I think it's attack and maneuver. There's no charge, and I don't think you can march either. I think is issue commands.
Issue commands is and then you've got employ is the other one. It's just occurred to me. And I know that this is stupid. Hibiscus saying Relentless as a card. If you actually got Relentless as a card, it would be straight up better than those things. Like, that's actually like.
Yeah, it would. Quite simple.
Commander cards.
I mean, like, it is a 3-point ability, whereas like Warcry is seen as like about a 1-point ability, and then they turn that into a card, right? So like a card isn't generally bringing a 3-point ability, so like for it to which is why it's such absolute jokes, that when you start to value the card in that kind of way, that coordination tactics can bring you relentless, not just relentless, but also relentless that
other stuff
can be combined with other stuff, like can be combined with
whatever you want.
Yeah, whatever you want. But yeah, the tournament, the tabletop wardens design contest in the past have been really interesting in what they've produced, and it's really great stuff that they do. So looking forward to seeing what people put together and what comes through on it.
Your judges will be Ilya, who's in chat obviously today, and Bartender Sebastian, who's also in chat, and also Yannick, as per usual, the trio who now make up Tabletop Warden. And yeah, if you're going to do anything, make sure it appeals to Ilya's Greyjoy senses. I'm sure that he'll get bonus points from him if you can nail some Greyjoy theme in the Roos. I'm sure there's some stealing some mechanics there. And Bartender's a big avid Stark fan, so he'd be pretty on this design space. He wants to see some either anti-treachery for Stark or pro-anti, I don't know, treachery for Stark. He wants to see stuff like that. Cool. So those are the three big ones. We spent ages on that, as per absolute usual. 1 hour 26. But it isn't it, of course. We've got more. But now we're moving on to our tournament segment. And should we see if this works first time? This never works first time. Are we ready?
I'll probably disappear or go really loud or something. Maybe. Can you hear me?
Wow. There we go. It's like the first time in about a million years when that's actually worked seamlessly. And by seamlessly, I mean slightly jagged, but not quite. We have had a tournament just finish at the weekend. One of the major tournaments that we be kind of following along, or the guys there at the Sunday Slaughter Crow at Gamers Haven. Their event finished on the weekend, and who won, Carlo?
Bob
won! And
Bob.
Did you see the community poll for what should Bob play at the event?
No, I think I heard.
I have to read in for this.
Whispers of it. I didn't actually see the poll. Did a poll go live?
Well, he put a thing up saying, "What should I play at this event? What should I play at this event?" And there was a mixture of answers. But I think he offered like 3 factions. One of them was Free Folk, and I think there's some other ones, Night's Watch and something else. And I think it was Free Folk which were winning. And what did he play in the event, Carly?
I'm pretty sure he played Night's Watch.
He did.
I did not actually know. I did not know that he had offered it up to community vote.
Classic Bob. What does the community say? No, it's not the community. No.
Community is wrong.
All shout out to Bob. I'll give him this. He ran Roos Commander. He had a Roos list. He didn't run Roos Commander. He ran John for the whole 3 rounds. With Benjen, it's not the Jon Snow like Hunter Watch Captain spam style stuff, which is a bit cancerous. But he's gone the Benjen route, and I have a bit more respect for this because it's not just relying on the innate power of the Watch Captain and Relentless. He's actually trying to play a solid 8 activation list, using good units, a good deck and things like that. But he's not trying to really mince the board with 9 activations and 10 activations.
He's even got Ranger Trackers in that Roos list.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Ranger Trackers see competitive play in all of 2021 practically.
Yes, you have. You've seen some games from Peter Corin Halfhand on the Discord. You surely saw in his game, right? Where he has like the he runs Vanguard. Oh my god, he runs Vanguard.
Yeah,
I apologize.
Nobody runs Ranger Trackers, mate. They cost 7 points. Like any other unit in the entire Night's Watch roster also costs 7 points, but is better. So yeah, but no, it's really. I'm glad that he ran John. I'm glad that he won the tournament. I'm glad that those things happened because I think that John is chronically underrated on the site. Like always don't forget that like the site is based on the submissions that you make. It's based on mathematical determination of how powerful these things are. They're not my opinions, and they don't always match up to my opinions. And I think that John could be considered in the top, 5 most powerful lists in the game, maybe. And I don't think he even sits in the top 10 right now. So anybody who fields it and uses it and wins, good on you, because you're helping the site to like meet my expectations of what actually is the game. Mm-hmm. So I'm always pleased when that happens.
It also shows that a good player like Bob is able to see something and go, that is better than that says, so I'm going to use it and win with it. So yeah, Matt, it's what it's about, isn't it? And yeah, he did play John every game.
Yeah.
So yeah, congratulations to Bob. I don't really have much else to say there. He ended up getting 13th.
What does Benjamin do? What does attachment Benjamin do?
Take a guess.
Just, I have no idea. If you just mouse over him, it should come up, right?
It will do. I just wanted just to see if you knew.
I can't remember.
Sentinel and ambush.
Sentinel and ambush for 1 point. Yeah, okay. Yeah, he's good. Yeah, I forgot that.
Sentinel for 1 point is good. Right.
Yeah.
Sentinel for 1 point is fine. Get ambush for free. You might never use ambush. I don't actually think ambush is that good an ability, because it's actually quite hard to leverage ambush a lot of the time, except that, high activations and things like Sentinel do help that.
He'll be super amazing if the watch captain gets nerfed. Like if we see relentless in general get nerfed to like not be an attack or anything like that, just be the maneuver now or something like that. Maybe not particularly in Ranger Hunters. If it goes to just being a melee attack, they'll still be able to utilize that combo really, really well, which is one of the reasons why I don't think it moving to a melee only attack necessarily solves its problems. But that combo is also very, very strong, while not being the combo that people expect you to be playing. So yeah, it's actually a very, very powerful list. I can see why it wins. The other one I don't think is very good at all and seems a little bit like a troll to me. Does it have 2 NCUs or 3?
Not 3. Well, he's got 2 in Gilly.
Oh no, Gilly, he's got 2.5 NCUs. Okay, no, yeah, that is actually a troll list. That one on the right is just a troll. Like
you look so angry and so upset by that list. What was if he'd have played it in one?
Well, I'm angry because he took it and he didn't play it. Like if you're going to take a troll list, at least play it once, Bob.
Yeah, no, we can rib Bob for that, and everyone else should rib Bob for that. Bob's a lovely guy, and he's a good player. Deserves the win, no doubt. So that was Gamers Haven that happened at the weekend. We had some other winners as well.
Lannister winners.
Yeah, I know, right? We had a Lordic winner. Shout out to Lordic. This was over in Russia, but he ran a Targaryen pairing. Now, I did want to give this guy a bit of a shout out. He's got different commanders, but it's exactly the same list. And he just went, sod it. I'm just going to take 2 commanders that aren't very good, make a good list, and see how it goes. And he won the event. So I mean,
hopefully, I think he's looking. At a guess, I think he's trying to unlock his Targaryen badge.
It's mental, absolutely mental. But yeah, he won. It's only a 6-player event. But yeah, it's still kudos for running those 2, and not Mother of Dragons. He hasn't done the absolute classic of taking Mother of Dragons as a Targaryen player to an event and never running him. So, all right.
He takes Rhaegal, which is interesting. We'll come on to talk about it in relation to the Scottish GT, which is, I do think that people are starting to lean towards Rhaegal being the dragon of choice.
Yeah. So, the Scottish GT and LVO, is LVO list locked?
LVO isn't list locked. I think that Carl is still trying to get hold of some people. Carl obviously only took over last minute. It was supposed to be its list deadline has passed, but he currently doesn't have everybody on stats, doesn't even have everybody on the Facebook event. So if you are going to LVO and you're not all of those things, then get in contact with Carl, get on the Facebook group, get involved, because obviously Carl has only just recently taken over running it. So if you can make his life easier, then please do, because he's doing the community an absolute solid in running that event.
Obviously, that means we can't go through lists. We can't go through the list breakdown. But hopefully Carl will get things sorted out there, and you'll be able to go on there. We will, yes, if things get sorted.
Maybe we'll talk about it next week. But
we'll probably talk about it next
we'll
week.
have other stuff to talk about next week.
We'll have other things, yeah, but we'll probably talk about it next week. And if it gets locked this week as well, we will post the stats readout and like a link, obviously, to go and see it on the stats page on our Facebook and share it on the Discords and stuff, so you guys can go and have a look. And that the list lock will be there. And
Carl and Bergeroth's right. Yeah. It'll probably be a Tuesday morning list lock.
It will be Tuesday morning list lock.
Monday night Tourney ground means Tuesday that things always happen on a Tuesday morning.
All right then, let's talk about the big one then. Let's get out of the way and done, because Belgroth's here. He reminded me that we're going somewhere special this weekend. A place called Scotland. It's at the north of England. There's
It's not the same country, by the way, people.
No, actually not.
for our American friends, there are multiple countries in the United Kingdom. You know that, right?
We don't need a visa or anything to get in, unlike Novak Djokovic, who apparently needs a visa to get in anywhere nowadays, or it doesn't matter, you just get it cancelled anyway.
Mickey getting topical.
Oh god, I have to. Anyway, so we are on to the breakdown of statistics. Now, I actually want to give a shout out to Doug. He was here in the chat earlier, Doug Gordon, one of the guys from Scotland, and also Connor, I think, or I don't even know.
Yeah, I think Connor.
Was it Connor?
Connor is Belgroth, right? Yeah.
So shout out to both of them, because they've both been in contact with us. Doug was talking to me, Connor was talking to Carlo, and they've both done some analysis on the event on Always Winter, which is absolutely fantastic. We are lazy shits in that we produce. I'm a lazy shit.
Hey, I mean, the Song of Ice and Fire stats exists in the way it exists because I didn't want to maintain any kind of spreadsheets or anything like that. So I built algorithms to do it for me.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't do manual statistics anymore because they are boring.
And I'm the guy who ended up doing all the manual statistics while this site didn't work. So, yes, both of them absolute legends. Put some stats together, which we'll look at. We'll look at both of them and give them the shouts that they deserve. But yes, their stats obviously available on the site. We'll have a look and breakdown of this quickly. It gives us the quick thing. Shout out to Carlo here, but he did get a bit wrong. But shout out to Carlo.
Almost.
He said roughly 20%.
I said 20 and 10, right?
20 and 10 for Night's Watch and Targ. 20% for Targ, 10 for Night's Watch. And we see 18, one player off that 20. So Carlo's just completely wrong. Not close at all. And 7% for Night's Watch, which, as it turns out, is a one player as well from that 10%. So again, completely wrong, miles away with your guesses.
I'll tell you what I basically got wrong, which was not wrong, but the reason why they're under is I did not think that Greyjoys would have the share of the pie that they do. Like, Greyjoys, hyper popular here, really, really big 20% input. The number one faction by entries, and that was something that I wouldn't have pegged that. I would have said that Baratheon percentage was bigger. I would have had Lannisters and Starks. I probably would have had both a little bit smaller. 9% neutrals, I would not have guessed, and I would not have put Free Folk as low as 4. Though I would have put them low, but not as low as 4. That. Low.
Yeah. So, one thing I did want to say is, even with Free Folk at a measly 4%, that equates to about 2 players, so it is 2 players. That means that officially, as of right now, obviously the day of the event is slightly different. If people don't turn up, things like that, which, COVID's still a thing, it might happen that people unfortunately can't make the day. But if things to say as they are right now, we actually have a better faction spread, marginally better faction spread than we did at the London GT at the end of last year.
All factions are contested for best in faction.
Mm-hmm. And yes, Tom, more neutral than Night's Watch. Who'd have thought that? Who'd have thought in 2021 that someone would say, "Oh, you're going to a big tournament"? Those neutral lists, you got to watch out for them. They're a big percentage. But yeah, Greyjoy absolutely dominating the space, even topping out Lannister, which had been a mainstay UK faction for years. They're topping out Lannister and the resurgence, like Carlo and me were talking about last week with Targaryens. So massive kudos to Greyjoy players, especially given that we see right there the #1 commander, Asher Greyjoy.
So this is what confuses me. This is what confuses me a lot. I think we'll have a full list breakdown of various stuff. Now, I didn't look into it loads, but I think I'm right in saying that if you had them, Greyjoy Heroes 2 are fair game for a pick. I'm pretty sure that nobody must have the box because there is not a single Greyjoy Hero 2 entered as either a commander or attachment or NCU. That's not like crazy. That's not crazy, right? To say, hey, look, nobody has the box yet. It hasn't even been released in this country. Blah, 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 blah. For them to still be the most popular faction, despite the fact that nobody has that box yet. Now, if everybody had that box, I'd be like, yeah, everybody's clamoring to play Greyjoys. Everybody wants to try out Balor, Balon, and is his name Balor? Balor Blacktide? Balor, yeah. Balor Blacktide. Everybody wants to try out Blacktide. Everybody wants to try out Cleftjaw. But that's not true. That's not what people want to do. They just want to play Greyjoys. They just want to play Greyjoy Hero 1, which is what they have. And that's, like, that's great. Like, I really just think that it's great that people want to play Greyjoys. It's very much coming true that people wanted to play Greyjoys forever. People have been waiting to play Greyjoys forever. And I was so disappointed that we weren't able to allow people to use Greyjoy Heroes 1 and Trappers, etc. at LGT because of the decision that we took very early in the process that UK only releases meant that Q1 releases in 2020 hadn't made it to the UK by the start of Q4 last year. And I think that it's a great faction spread, and I'll be really interested to see how the Greyjoys do because there was a lot of people playing them, and I had not prepared for that matchup specifically.
No. Now, is this finally the day where we can say that the people of the United Kingdoms, Scotland and England and Wales have come together and gone back to their, Viking heritage finally, and have adopted the raiding principles for A Song of Ice and Fire, and more importantly, has the Lannister stronghold in Britain finally been broken? I don't know what that says, by the way, that we used to all favour Lannisters in the UK. We're a bunch of dicks. Not sure. But yeah, Greyjoy's making the biggest appearance, and actually, as Connor was saying in chat there, like the difference, really, like as close as it seems and as silly as it might sound, the difference in this is literally one Greyjoy player choosing to play Greyjoys over, say, a Stark army. Connor himself is a avid Stark player. Has always played his Starks. Known for his things like he's running his Tully lists and stuff. He's actually made the swap to Greyjoys for this event as well. But it is that close. It's between one player, and Lannister, Tar, Greyjoy, and Stark have had basically the same number of players across, which, balance aside, let's wait to leave out Northern Ireland. I don't want to leave them out of this case. I would include them. The only thing I would say is I can only imagine that COVID restrictions still make travel difficult, even though they live in the UK still. The whole border thing with
it's a pretty easy boat ride across the Stranraer.
Is it not an absolute cluster? fuck with other
No.
things going on? No.
I don't think.
Wow.
I don't think there's any significant COVID restrictions between Northern Ireland and the UK. I
That's
don't
not
think.
too bad. No, I wouldn't. I was thinking more Brexit more than COVID for that case. I didn't know if that was.
I tell you what is interesting. Like we never really talked about it. I've never seen an event or a discussion or anything about the game ever being posted from Northern Ireland.
I know
I
Irish
don't know if
players. No, I know
I
people.
think
Maybe
Republic
maybe.
of.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever seen a Northern Irish community. I'd be really interested to know if there is one.
Give us a shout out if you're out there and watching this later
Yeah,
on. Give us a shout out
in
if you're from Northern
Belfast
Ireland.
or anywhere else. You know, like there are. I am aware there are other cities in Northern Ireland than Belfast.
Have you just covered?
But
Have you just literally covered our ass saying like we didn't actually forget them? There's just no one there who plays the game. That's that. If you are out there and play the game, let us know.
I'd be really interested to know because I do actually spend a bit of time in Northern Ireland.
Oh yeah, I forget that you go over to Northern Ireland for extended
I'll come
periods.
visit your gaming group. If you tell me that there's a gaming group in Northern Ireland, I'll drive across Northern Ireland to come see you.
I won't go into Carlo's like home life and personal life too much, but hey, we always do. Carlo's partner
he overshares for me every week, so you know.
Carlo's partner is Irish, so that's why he goes over quite a lot. Northern Irish, yeah. So I'd just like to point out his way of going and doing something with his partner is to go and visit her in her, home city, hometown, whatever, and then when he's there, leave her and go and play games. Oh, classic.
That's what I did for Ribble Rumble. She stayed with my family while I went to Ribble Rumble all weekend.
You are one lucky, or she is one tolerant person.
Tolerant.
So anyway, yes, Asher being the most popular, and Victarion coming in number two, tied with Mother of Dragons at 7 picks per side. So Asher, Victarion, and Danny, Mother of Dragons' most popular commanders at the event. Asher and Victarion, as you say before, it means the inclusion, or not very much inclusion, of Greyjoy's Hero 1 and or Greyjoy Heroes 2, which is, yes, already been announced and semi-released, if you're lucky. Is it? No. Greyjoy's Heroes 2 hasn't. Yes, it has. Oh, Jesus Christ, it has. That with Dagmar.
Greyjoy Heroes 2 is now being restocked in Anytime War Games. After it went out of stock almost instantaneously first time around, which was like a good 3 months ago, right?
It feels weird to say that Greyjoy Heroes 2 is already out, given that they've been out for about a year. The whole faction is already to Greyjoy Heroes 2. It just felt like, how are they that far along? Anyway,
and the fact that you can't get Greyjoy Heroes 1 in the UK, it hasn't yet met release. Yeah.
Brilliant.
It's not a distribution episode, Mickey. Let's move on.
Let's not. We've gone past that. Right, so I'll look into Doug's first. Doug has got for us the breakdown of the factions here, and specifically what activation numbers they are running at. I won't go through the whole graph. Zoom on it there. The big takeaways here is looking at the spikes, which we'll see in the graph here. Activation counts are centered around 7 and 8. Okay. There are a lot of 7 activation lists. A lot of 7, 8 activation lists. There are a lot less 8 activation lists, although they make up the bulk.
It's like a 2-to-1 ratio at least in favor. More than that in favor of 7s over 8s.
If you incorporate the 6s, definitely it's a 3-to-1. And there are some that above that. There are 8s that have pseudos as part of them, so they're kind of like 7 pseudo 8 or 6 pseudo 8, which are availabilities there. And there is one 9 activation list. That's
pure 9, right?
Pseudos, pure 9 from a
Is it
start
a
player.
Triple direwolf?
It might well be a triple direwolf. I think. So you can get it without triple direwolf. If you run double direwolf and everything else is a 5-point unit, pretty much. I think you can get there. I have to work the math out quickly. 4, 4, 4.
Elite Teddy claims to have a 7-star targ list, which I did.
Yeah. Maybe it,
This is done manually, by the way.
yeah.
Which is why
Mhm.
mistakes can creep in. But I would say that as a whole, those numbers are broadly right. Like, and I think the activation counts low.
I do. I think seven. Like if we were to take an
Okay.
average, the
Yeah.
activation count's about 7.
Yeah.
You know.
I think that it's unsurprising, right? Like whenever you look at people making lists that they just enjoy and just putting lists together, not looking at the top end of the meta, not looking lists constructed with a real mindset around them, people always end up upon much lower activation counts. And so for me to be surprised and say, oh, the activation count is lower than I expected is almost to be expected. Like I always default to really high activation counts, whereas, like I'm always surprised that other people are happy to play 7. And I mean, Abiscus says the 7 MODs help. I'm playing a natural 8 MOD. That's how much I believe in activations. Like the unit that MOD herself is super weak. I only play 2 NCUs, even though I think the 3 would be much, much better. But it is the only way to make a natural 8 in MOD at 40 points. And I think it's worthwhile.
So, not only that, we see in a competitive event for a time that I have not seen this come up, we have some absolute manic legend who I know was here in chat earlier, who has gone for a 1 NCU list.
1 NCU. I saw it before when we were looking across. I was like, are there any 1 NCU lists? There is one NCU list.
And it's in Night's Watch. Yeah. Don't you absolutely love life? It's a Jaw list with Jaw vets, trackers with Jon Snow brothers, Watch Captain brothers, Ghost and Aemon.
I mean, if you're going to have 1 NCU, Aemon's not a bad bet. He basically makes himself... he gets whatever zone you just took plus bags every round.
Yeah.
He doubles down. That's...
I'm going to throw it out there. And I might get this wrong. I think that this list might do a lot better than people think it should. I don't think it's a good list. That's not against the player at all. I don't think it's a good list myself, but I do think it will perform better than you would probably think. Purely because it's what 1, 2, 3.
It's still got
7 activations still. Into the
still 7 activations, and 5 combat drops. Means that it can deploy well. Like it's interesting. I wouldn't play it myself. I think that it gives up so much control of the board. There are also certain modes where like it's just a real problem. Like honed and ready. if you're just going to let your opponent just go, I shoot you, and I shoot you, and I shoot you, you're really like not going to be able to utilize the value of controlling those wide objectives because you're not going to want to because of the amount you get shot. But still, really interested to see how it does on the day.
Yeah, and there you go. Mikhail shouting out Jesse, who's been a proponent for less NCUs, by not saying that the meta should move away from 3, but by actually just playing 1 and 2s, saying, look, I can do okay. So yeah, big shout out to Jesse for that one, actually, who's the online
Are we going to talk about
champion.
The other Night's Watch? Only one player. I mean, people are already talking about it in chat. Only one player in the entire tournament is playing Othel, and he's playing him twice.
Look, you know what? If you're gonna be convicted and play something, be bloody convicted and play it. What? Why shy away from it? Yeah, Tom Bell. He's running the awful list of the double conscript watch captain crossbowman unit and the 3 NCUs, and he's running an alternative version with single conscript 2 NCU trait. Basically, it's the same skeleton, but you take out Tycho and upgrade your conscripts for a unit of flayed men. Um, the
Interesting.
two
We actually had a
lists,
long discussion about it when we looked at the
yeah.
list and once they went visible. I don't think it's of zero value to have it in the pairing. I think that it's not as good a list, but I think it has a place and it has a use.
Mm.
Mickey was less convinced.
I did come around on it. I came around on it, and I do think I can see why. Um, I personally believe that anything that solves the problem of Night's Watch Othel is going to have the solutions to this list anyway. So wouldn't you? They would just pick that list regardless, and you're not presenting a different option that's significantly different. So the options will still probably work as solutions. It's the question of can you leverage the flayed men to counteract their solutions to the crossbowmen, I think. But yeah, it's uh, it's interesting. It's interesting. I don't know if it's going to be valuable or not. Is the question.
Yeah, I'll be interested. I'll be interested. I mean, he's coming up against a lot of Targs, a lot of MOD, a lot of Greyjoys. I don't think that his lists are out of place in an MOD world. You know, like
No.
I think it's absolutely fair play to be running this.
Yeah.
And and yeah, we're here to judge you. We're here to judge. We're here to judge, Scott. I mean, Scott, don't be saying stuff. Otherwise, we'll get your lists up, and then there'll be judgment, mate. There'll be real judgment.
I actually think I've said too much already. Where's Scott? Where's Scott? He's done double Asher. That's a brave
Double
one.
Asher, come on, mate. Have a bit of inventiveness. Double Iron Makers.
To be
What
fair,
is this?
it's a four pseudo 5 on the field and 3 NCUs. He hasn't gone that wrong. It's a 5 activation list.
You know what I saw?
And that's
I do know.
that's
I do
basically
know
the same
that.
thing.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Well, what's the point in your second list, mate?
Mate, what
Is
on
it
earth are you doing?
exactly the same? Is he bringing
No.
one list?
Oh my god, where's the difference? Where's the difference? Oh, he had Balon in the first list, and he takes Balon out for Tycho, saving him a point, and the point goes into a Reaver Captain in the Bowman. Massive change.
Guys, two list formats exist so that you can do really, really interesting pairings. Nah, I do think actually, you know what? Again, that's not actually without value. Not trolling aside, to be able to say if there's a place for it, I'll bring outflank. But basically, I'm playing this list with or without outflank is actually quite an interesting concept because it can be very, very possible that you just come up against something Targaryens and you're just like, well, I can't play outflank. And so what you're doing is you're basically saying, against some people, Lannisters, Baratheons, outflank can have just a bit of value, or some game modes, it can have a bit of value. I think that value is too low. But like, I think that if you were to try and put outflank into a list, it would kind of be like, here's my list with outflank and here's my list without outflank. That's going to be my two list pairing. For them to be as kind of similar to each other as possible, so that what you're doing is making an all-comers list with and without outflank. Not worthless. You could do better.
Yeah.
Could do better.
Try again. Could do better. Yeah. So, oops. This one. Hey, there we go. Too many tabs. So yeah, there's Scott being put on the chopping block for complaining. So what's actually super interesting, I did actually quite like this, is that the majority of lists obviously aren't pseudo in most factions, and it says a lot about where the meta is at the moment. We see Greyjoy predominantly sitting at 7, but it's about a 50-50 over 7 and 8. Lannister, who are about a 2-1, 7 and 8. Neutral, who we already know basically can't get to 8 unless they castrate themselves. Baratheons, who present 1-8, but it's again 7s and 6s. It's Stark. It's Stark and Targaryen that make up a huge number of 7 lists with basically nothing to show above it outside of these random lists that appear to be like either 8s or 9s. That's that's really telling. It's really telling that Stark and Targaryen players generally feel that they're playing in a 7 activation meta. It's interesting to see that Greyjoys, Lannisters feel that they've got play in both. And we already know where Neutrals and Baratheons are playing, so who gives a shit? It does definitely feel that where the factions are playing right now, I mean, without pardon the pun, there is a stark difference to where the different factions are playing in terms of activation count.
I think that Targs and Starks are interesting because without us diving into the site and bringing loads of stuff up, they're two of the factions that perform reasonably well at 7, and that 8 isn't a clear-cut better number. Some people argue that Targaryens is actually just because everybody runs MOD at 7 and that its weight of data is pushed towards, well, MOD does well, so Targ 7 does well because MOD is 7. But actually, I argue that MOD doesn't have to be 7. I think that Starks isn't different, which is like they just so struggle to get to 8. I think like unless you lean very heavily into direwolves, you really struggle to get to a natural 8. I think that for Lannisters, Baratheons, Greyjoys, they're all achievable. Personally, I think that is where you should be playing. You should be playing at 8 because you are better at those numbers, or Greyjoys can even push to 9 or 8 pseudo 9. Personally, I think that it feels painful to list build Lannisters, Baratheons, and Greyjoys as 8s, but actually you're better if you do. I can't say the same for Starks and Targs. Like, you're not necessarily better at that higher activation count for Starks specifically. Night's Watcher are just a force unto themselves. It's like, how many conscripts do you want to take? How many NCUs do you want to take? Neutral, it's painful to even get to 7 with neutrals sometimes. And free folk are their own force unto themselves, which is, I feel like they should be playing 8s and 9s. But Endless Horde actually throws like a big spanner into that, which is like, hey, maybe I could play lower and just get an extra activation out early. I think that
the problem we've talked about it a lot. We've talked about it a lot with specifically free folk, and I don't want to harp on too much, but there was a question literally earlier today by one of our patrons about basically this exact thing, which is the free folk lose a lot of value going from 8 to 9 natural because they don't have the pseudo. Whereas Greyjoy don't actually lose a lot trying to get to 9 because of that pseudo.
Yeah.
That 1 point that it frees up, it makes the lists bloody tight. The 9 activation Greyjoy lists are very tight in points, but you don't lose enough to warrant it. Whereas in Free Folk, you lose just enough that, to put it bluntly, the way I see a Free Folk list build is that you have 10 lots of 4 points, you have 3 NCUs, there's 12 points, you have 5 combat units, that's your 8, and then you've got, right, well, if you want to go to 9,
4-point packages, what are you gonna use it on?
What you're gonna use your 2 4-point packages on, and either you upgrade current units you've got, or you purchase attachments, or you purchase another unit. And sometimes if you go to 9, okay, now you're at 9, you've got 4 points to spend on your army. Tormund detachment, there's a point. At steer NCU, there's a point. You probably want a unit Spearwives, there's another point. What's your last point on? Probably another unit Spearwives or Follows a Bone. You don't have scope to actually include the units you want to include at 9, even though I do think that 9 activations free folk is strong. It's moving into the point where we're talking cookie cutter. Why are you taking the Follows a Bone over a Spearwife? Why are you taking Tormund over a Spearwife or this? You have to know where those 4 points are being spent and where the value is really coming.
Well, I think that's absolutely the problem for Starks. but the barrier is 7 to 8. So they
Yes.
feel that when they go to 8, they're just spamming 5-point units. They've got no points left to spend anywhere else, and they're just losing too much value to take that step. And that is, for most factions, that exists somewhere. You know, like even Lannisters can field a natural 10. Anybody who can put a unit on the board for 4 points can field a natural 10. Anybody who can buy a unit for 5 points can, you know, field natural 8s. But it's a question of like, is it worth it? And for some factions, it can feel painful, but it is a worthwhile step to take. And for others, it's just too much pain to take that step. You lose too much. And that is a very interesting discussion about where it exists for various factions. You know, neutrals can just spam cutthroats if they want, and they can field an 8, but there is nobody really doing it successfully as far as I can see. They are just right there in the 7s, just because they just don't have the options that others do. I mean, Jesse says that they have a few okay 8 builds that's built around 5 and 6-point units, I guess. So you're talking blackguards, you know, cutthroats, mercs.
Yeah.
I think that it's a painful step. I think that it's an even more painful step than it is for Starks, because Starks do have the direwolves, plus they have more more options in the 5-point category. The thing is that Starks have great units in the 6-point category, which is where they actually want to sit. Starks want to field 4 6-point units,
And also
and
a
if anything,
billion different choices.
and they want to give them and they want to put an attachment in them,
Yeah.
and that just leans you massively into the 7 activation camp. And I think that Starks can be powerful in that camp. And I think the Starks do everything that they want to do with maybe a slightly too heavy a cost on the tactics deck for what they get. But the game is just leaning away from them in terms of like, they're good at 7. 7 isn't good.
Yeah.
And that's why I say for everybody else is also, you know, like, they're good at 7, but 7 isn't good, which is why I personally lean away from it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It is interesting to see a lack of 9 or 8 above 8s, to be honest, in the tournament. Overall, there are some 9s. Obviously, we're not seeing a 10. Before anyone says no, I still, and I know Carlo kind of jokes and says and memes about it a little bit, but I do kind of refuse to play the 7 Raiders 3 NCU type builds. I just actually think that they're not a positive thing for the game, and I don't mean that from like MOD, which is powerful, but it's the power level that's the problem. I just think fielding an entire army where you don't get a point for killing anything is just actually a depressing thing to do in a game, among other things.
That's not why he doesn't do it. He doesn't do it because he hasn't got the models.
Well, no, because I'd have bought them, right? That's the thing. At this point, I can buy purchase raiders for like a tenner. God, no one else in the UK play Free Folk. I'm sure they're just literally falling out of backs of trucks.
I think you can get them in car boot sales in Northern Ireland at any other Sunday.
Is that the name of the store? Any other Sunday, like Anytime Games? Yeah, no, I'm not going to run that list. Certainly not now. While I believe in this, what is left of this balance is still around. But yeah, like no one's running 9s really.
Which I'm glad of, because I've run a pair of 8s. And the worst thing I want to see when I'm running a pair of 8s is a 9. That is actually interesting that if you participate in the activation arms race and you're at a painful point for your own faction, like it's really painful. I've got to take loads of crap units that I didn't want to have to take to be able to get my activation count higher. If you do that, you make that sacrifice and go to that higher activation count. If your opponent's army and faction has gone even higher than you, then you've lost tons of the worth in going to that higher activation count, because you went to it to gain activation parity or activation advantage. And say you play an 8 into a 9, but your 8 made so loads of sacrifices to get to 8. We're talking about maybe a Stark specifically, or a neutral who it was really painful to be an 8. You ended up with none of the units that you wanted, and then you play into a Night's Watch 9, right? you would have been better off just playing your 7. You would have been better off with a really comfortable, powerful 7 and being 2 activations down rather than like sacrificing a lot and being 1 activation down. It's only worth that sacrifice if it gets you parity or advantage. It's not worth it. Worth it if it just halves your opponent's activation advantage, in my opinion. Because you'll end up with so many weak units. If you're always going to be out activated, you might as well just bring powerful stuff. And that's where those 6 activation lists can actually be surprising, which is that they can surprise 8s because 8s are set to take on 7s and have an advantage against 7s, out activate them by 1. And 7s don't have like super Death Star units. So they're just like, okay, I'll dive in on this unit late in the round. I out activate, I get in there, I get this kill, I double it up with the swords. Bang, 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 tempo is mine. A 6 is just like, hey, here's 4 fucking units that absolutely kick ass. And they'll be out activated by a 7, which also has a load of powerful units, and they'll probably have a tough matchup there. But against the 8, the 8's like, I've sacrificed all my power just to out activate you, and everybody out activates you. Everything activates you. So I still think that the 8 wins, but they can surprise you. A 6 can surprise you.
Mm-hmm. It's all about, it's not, and this is where, you know, we talk about it. It's becomes, and it's true anyway, right? It's about the player. But out activation as a concept, I think people generally speaking agree is good. Yeah, as in like it's a powerful thing to use. But actually, when you talk about activation, it's all about how you leverage it. The 2 versus 3 NCU discussion has never been about 3 NCUs are better than 2 NCUs, really. It's about trying to get across how can you leverage the advantage of 3 versus 2 when people say, oh, but it's giving me more combat units on the board. Like, you can leverage the advantage of the tactics board. If you know how, you are well more in the driving seat because it is more powerful. If you don't know how to leverage that, if you're not used to doing that, you will struggle. And that's the big difference. The last point you mentioned about, you know, fighting into 9s, and this is the discussion we actually had on Friday, wasn't it? This whole discussion we had with Free Folk and Targaryen, that particular matchup, because we've been playing it a lot, in that it feels bad either way for both players, and it feels very much that the list pick and the list tech, there are some things to stay away from, but then the rest almost feels irrelevant. In that, if the Endless Horde comes down on round 1 and Targaryens don't have field control, the Free Folk probably just win. And I say that just win, like, it's a massive uphill battle for the Targs to win. If they play Endless Horde on round 1, it gets field control. It's not the end of the world. It's not looking great. The question is if they play like Endless Horde round 2 and it gets field control, that's probably the opposite way around. The Targs are probably just going to win.
Yeah. It's such a swingy interaction between those 2 cards that you've committed to take horses at a particular time, probably early in the round, because as long as Endless Horde exists, I'll block it early-ish. You're going to have to take it early if you want it when other decent things are on the board. And then you've committed to also playing Endless Horde, and then just like that's either a huge play, a huge unit, a whole activation advantage for the rest of the game, or you just got, you know, field controlled. There's been a few people asking about the MOD 8, and they'll be interested to see how it does. I will be interested to see how it does too. I'm not going to talk hugely about it until next week. I don't want to give away all my secrets. It has a role. It's possibly not what you think it is. How do I feel about my lists now, seeing the meta? I made a last minute change. The last change I made was to this Drogo list, which we were just looking at there, which is my first iteration that I was trying earlier was that I ran Barristan and Jaqen. Jaqen to be able to copy Barristan, or sometimes somebody brings a useful influence ability to copy. I swapped that out for Tycho or Illyrio. They were quite interchangeable. I think that Illyrio and Tycho are pretty even. I swapped Jaqen out for Illyrio plus the Fortune Seeker in the Veterans. That one last change, I'm very pleased at, having seen what's come out of it. There aren't as many Night's Watch. The Barristan Jaqen combo is specifically trying to shut down as much Relentless and as much crossbow orders and Jorah, and it has so many uses that. Yes, you might not stop 2 Relentless every turn, but there are 2 things that you want to stop every turn in Night's Watch. I think that it had. I played Mickey mostly, and I didn't play into Night's Watch, and so I was just leaning towards I felt like I wasn't getting use out of both of them all the time, and I wanted a zone replacement. That's why I went to Illyrio in the end. And having seen what other people have brought, I'm very pleased with it. The 1 point with the Fortune Seeker could go elsewhere, but I think that it's the best point that you can spend. It's not a linchpin of the list. I would so love to have 1 more point and be able to take Recaro, but so does everybody wants 1 more point. All right.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything else. I can't think of anything else for that list.
I wouldn't want to lose this first Barry. I wouldn't want lots of Barris and Salmi. There's always something so but every list has something like Warcry, or when you want to confirm a kill on a unit to be able to stop a Tycho on them, or stop stop a final strike, stop all these kind of things. Everybody's got something that you're I don't want to have to deal with that. And Barristan is so powerful for that. I'm very, now that I've seen it, I'm pleased with this selection. I'm still very I am genuinely saying I'm just waiting to see how this 6 MOD does, because this 8 activation MOD, because it's very untested. I played it a couple of times. Theoretically, I believe it's very good.
We played 2 games, didn't we, of it on Friday? Against my free
first activation of round 2, he killed MOD.
Yeah, literally the very first thing is round 2. I killed MOD.
It was my fault.
Carlo shit the game.
I totally overextended.
The score really does not do the game justice. That was actually a very interesting game. We both made mistakes. We both had plays, and I played to a ridiculous out. And I will not sit here and say that I played well. I got fucking lucky.
I was 1 wound away from tabling Mickey, basically.
Winning the game, yeah.
But instead I lost 10-2.
10-2. And on the flip side, literally on the flip side, we played a second game where I thought I'd try this other list tech that me and Carlo spoke about, not into Dragons, but into the matchup. And it was an abject failure. Admittedly, I didn't play it well. I made a key mistake, to be honest, but it was never really in a position where I was going to win. It was just a question of how do I get taken apart.
He played Mag, and I just gobbled Mag on turn 2, and that was it. I just walked around and ate the rest of his army. It was we didn't finish.
No, it was not. It was one of those games where
not worth playing.
It just wasn't. Neither of us were going to get anything out of it. And, but it's interesting anyway, nonetheless. I like your Drogo list. I think your Drogo list is very good. I've already talked to you a lot about it.
And for Hilo, the one thing I was super happy to see is the one thing that I thought was a big weakness in my list, and I was very nervous about doing, is they both have Jorah in. I was very, very pleased when there weren't any Scorpions, because that would have been it just puts undue pressure onto, particularly Othel Scorpion. Othel Scorpion put +1 attack, +1 hit on the Scorpion first turn. You're probably going to kill Jorah. And I'm just on a clock. I'm on a clock. You must go forward, otherwise Jorah's dead. And then you just 1 point and 1 activation down in a in a game against a faction where you're probably already activations down and you don't want to have to attack into Night's Watch. If they can force the tempo, they're so good defensively. So yeah, I was very, very pleased. I don't know about Mickey. How do you feel?
What, no Scorpions or no Night's Watch?
Just the general spread of what you've seen, other than the fact that you're a 50-50 to win the best in faction.
I know, right? My lists are what I ran at the GT. I made a subtle change, and then I kind of unchanged it. Subtle changes. I was considering running the 9, and I fell back on my thoughts. I sat around and think about it, and Carlo knows I was actually sat in our games club at like 11:30, still humming an R-ring, still wanting to change it or not.
Mid game, he was still mid. We were playing mid game, and he was asking me whether or not he should change his lists.
Not at 11:30. We'd finished by then. You'd wipe me by then. Wasn't that the game? Wasn't that long? No, the big thing was basically I'd fallen back onto, when you think yourself into a corner, and everyone does it sometimes. You think of the counter to the, and what I'd actually discussed with Carlo to some extent is I expected a lot of Targaryens as well, but then I was thinking to myself, how do I beat Carlo's Targaryens? At which point I was not actually saying, how do I beat Carlo's Targaryens? I was actually asking myself the question, how do I beat Carlo in this matchup? And that isn't something I believed I could do with a list build. That had to be how I played the game, because I believe that like the list build that he's got is good. I just have to present a good list build and outplay him. So I stuck with the list that I originally thought about because I trust those lists. They have performed for me plenty of times in the past. I have a lot of belief in those lists and how I play them. And I am comfortable playing into 8 or even 9 activations with them. And I've got no issues whatsoever. I love the scope and the look of this meta. There's less Night's Watch, means I'm less likely to bump into them. There's less of the cancer that I genuinely believe I can't face unless I'm running one list or perhaps some game modes. I'm looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to the event because I genuinely believe that I love my lists. I mean, I properly love my lists. I've said it before. Not just my lists. I love playing Free Folk anyway. I absolutely adored the games I played at the GT against all the opponents that I had. But yeah,
Doug says he nearly ran double Hedge Knight Lannisters. I wonder, how do you feel about that, Doug, knowing that MOD's 7 in 7 times?
Someone should have done it. Someone should have done it. It's a shame when we don't see lists that we talk about, and I know we should be playing the lists we talk about. But I say it's a shame. It's a great thing.
Only play one list.
I know, right? It's a great thing when we talk about a list idea and list theory, and someone goes away and does it, and they come back and says, "Yeah, it really worked for me," or "It didn't," because actually, we can understand how a list works. We can build a list, but that doesn't make it strong. It's just we understand how it works and we believe it's strong. But it's when people go away and run a list a couple of times and it works for them regularly, they can come back and say, you know what, that list idea you've got, you've never played it, but it is good. When I did it with the Rob list with the Bowman, someone went away and played it and went, that was really fun actually, that was good. I saw how it was supposed to work. It's a massively shame when, with that Lannister list, the double Hedge Knights, that would have been amazing.
Okay, well, Doug says that Bloodraven says Roos can beat dragons, and as we all know, I believe anything that comes out of Bloodraven's mouth. So
it's true. He literally does believe everything that comes out of Bloodraven's
mouth. And if Doug's getting inside track from Bloodraven, then I'm nervous. Speaking of, unfortunately,
you beaten him yet? You beaten him yet? No, wait, you haven't. Cool.
No.
It's all right, bud. Sometimes I beat Carlo too.
Unfortunately, the Scottish GT has ended up 100% GB entrance. Right, we haven't managed to get any internationals, but COVID's been COVID, as we all know. For the past few months, things have been bad. That's why LVO maybe won't quite get the international turnout that I hoped for either.
Yeah.
Yep. So I think that it's a great turnout from the UK though, and hopefully meet loads of new people. Really looking forward to it. We'll give you the lowdown next week on how we get on. We'll talk about, whether or not free folk can dominate when there's no or not many Night's Watch to shoot them off the board.
Hold them back.
And where we'll talk about Carlo's crazy natural 8 activation Mother of Dragons, and whether or not I'd do it again, because we all know that I won't do it again because I only ever really play a list once. So
I only heard you only play a game once, right? I've never seen you.
Yeah, it's actually kind of crazy that I actually tested the theory by putting in 2 practice games before I played these lists. Normally they're entirely theoretical, and I just turn up to a tournament with them.
That's not a lie. So I was going to look at Doug's stuff because I wanted to stop. Not Doug, sorry, Connor's stuff. Connor's stats here has done a great spreadsheet. I'm guessing anyone who wants access to this, feel free to message either myself or Connor, as far as I'm aware. It's absolutely fine to share this if you're interested. But it's the overall picks we're interested in. It's been a while since I've looked at a spreadsheet like this, Carlo.
A lot of beautiful colours.
Yeah. He's done it a similar way, but he hasn't got the automation. So you get 1 brownie point for doing it, Connor. But there are ways you can make it better. And I'm not going to go into that now. Anyway, Ironborn Reavers. It shouldn't be a surprise at all that Ironborn Reavers make up 34 picks across the Greyjoys, most popular faction. That's absolutely fine. But in at number 2, Dragons. He's genericized them there, 26. I believe he's got a note on, so let's read.
Yeah, the little note says that. I mean, it's MOD. I think it's MOD 8 times, or it's MOD 7 times.
7 times.
Okay, MOD 7 times, which means that there's 5 more dragon picks.
Yeah. 3
of which are Rhaegal as the highest picked dragon, and then there's a Viserion picked, or maybe 2 Drogons. I kind of assumed that it was 8 MOD and
7 MOD. 3 extra Rhaegal, 1 Drogon, and 1 Viserion.
So. I do think that is it is interesting that people have come to believe that the weakened token is the more important part of the dragon 3 options. That you're better off weakening your opponent, rather than most early thoughts were that Drogon's panic and that he can use it instantly, get instant use out of it, push through extra damage straight away, was the most powerful of the dragons. I think that's actually a really interesting and very subtle evolution. Whether or not, Viserion has like list tech into like a Barristan Selmy list, who has supposed synergies with vulnerable tokens and stuff like that. I think it's very interesting. I do think MOD's MOD. There aren't loads of dragons, right? There's loads of MOD. There aren't loads of dragons, and on another page he has the breakdown of all the factions. And I think that what's quite interesting about Targaryens is there is actually a really wide spread of like the units being used in Targs. When you look, that dragon number is very big, but there's a lot of use of a lot of things.
Screamers make up the next one at 7. Then you've got Hurricanes, Pikemen, 6s, 3 units at 5, cuts with 4. Then you're into the 2s and the 1. Hey! Freedmen, come in 1 time, Carlo.
That'd be me.
List. Yep. Actually, just curiosity, how often does Sir Simp? He's 4 lists. So actually,
2 of which for me.
Yeah, not very many people looking at Jorah.
Yeah, it was a very interesting list. It was the one that I looked at the most because it's the list that I'm using. All the things that were actually the highest picked. So Screamers, 7 choices. Hurricanes, 6 choices. Pikemen, 6 choices. Outriders, 5 choices. I'm using none of those units in either of my lists. And then you have to look further down.
It's the veterans,
Blood Riders. It's the next chunk of things which I'm fielding. So definitely, at the extreme end of the list building, which is unsurprising because I mean, I always place myself at the extreme end of list building, using hardly any starter set models in general. But yeah, I'm surprised at how little drawer is used because I think the drawer is incredibly powerful. There are only 4 drawers across a total of what I think is like 18 lists or something like that, or more.
Yeah, be about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, really, really interesting there. No Piet Priest, the only NCU not picked up in a list there. It really has moved into the point of just weirdness and not inclusion. I think finally. Okay, so that was just talking about the units there. We obviously have flayed men in 22 times as well, which I think is just becoming an absolute staple. So it's not a surprise there at all. Yeah. NCUs, it is any surprise that by a country fucking mile, and I am going to swear there, because that is Tycho Nestoris at 50 fucking 3 lists.
So Tycho is nearly the number 1 picked NCU for every faction. Almost every faction picks Tycho more than any other. Like, there are a few that don't. I think maybe Illyrio outpicks him in Targs.
Yeah, okay. Basically a Targ version.
I think Eddard outpicks him in Starks or something. That's I remember there were a couple of factions where he wasn't number 1, but basically every faction would rather have Tycho than any NCU of their own.
Can we just point out 53 lists? Now, there's only two free folk, so that's across the whole event. That's
43 of the players.
I don't know if they included the guy on the waiting list. They might have included the guy on the waiting list in there as well. And if they did, that moves it to 44 players. So 88 lists, meaning that Tycho's picked up in 5/8 of them. So what? That's quick math, 62%.
I wonder. Might have to go back to really old NRG tournament year and a half ago. Yeah. I wonder if that's worse. By worse, I mean I wonder if that's an even more extreme pick rate than old Varys and Walder.
I'll tell you what, I'll go look that up while you talk about that and the impact.
And yeah, Connor's actually, it's interesting that in neutrals specifically, they pick Roose more often. No, Baelish. They pick Baelish more often than they pick Tycho, which is weird. But yeah. I think that actually that's kind of reminiscent of the fact that I do think that neutrals actually see more synergy with Baelish. Tycho's very weird that he's not actually very, he's a very good NCU, but he's not actually specifically that good for neutrals, because neutrals have a lot of healing in amongst their deck. I think that he's very, very good for filling other factions' weaknesses and holes. The number 1 counter in the whole game to Tycho is a flayed man has no secrets. So that Roose is the overall top pick commander. Tells you a lot.
Across all factions. That's crazy.
All factions combined.
Yeah.
Roose is your number 1 choice.
Obviously, when we analyze this on stats, we talk about Roose being in another faction. So there's Roose Greyjoy, Roose Neutral, Roose whatever. So that's why he won't appear on the most picked commander list on stats. Because it is a fundamentally different list build. It's not the same lists that you're running. It's different factions straight up. But yeah, 10 picks across those.
Yeah.
That's actually kind of crazy. I'm just going to have a quick look at the pick by faction.
Ilya says he's 100% going to get nerfed. I'll one-up you. He's 100% going to get over-nerfed.
So it is...
And just disappear. He's just going to disappear from competitive play. They will over-nerf him.
This is actually mental, right? Name... There's only 2 factions that have taken Roose. Name them.
Taken Roose Commander?
Yeah.
Neutrals Lannisters?
Correct. Yeah, most popular in neutrals, which should be a given. You expect that. But it's the most popular commander in Lannisters as well, which we already know from like a power perspective. But he beats out Tyrion even by just one pick, but it still beats him out.
Yeah, I'm with the Biscus, which is to me the right nerve to Tycho is a change to his trigger. I can't tell you like where that exactly ends up. Start of round, start of friendly turn, on activation, when claiming zone. It's, all of them are worse than start of any turn. And so I think that that's enough to bring him into acceptable play rate. I think he's very powerful, right? I pick him all the time. I don't think that like he game changingly, like, you know, he does change the game, which is why I pick him. I don't know what I'm trying to say. He's not overwhelmingly overpowered. What he is overwhelmingly overrepresented. He's overwhelmingly overpicked. He's overwhelmingly just a good choice for everybody. So you don't need to nerf him far because it's not like, oh my god, that's just crazy powerful. It's like, no, he's just good. He's good for everybody. He's good at all time. No matter what list you have, he's good.
I think the difference is, and this is why it pushes it over, is that he allows sustained gameplay, and that's not a problem. But if your list doesn't play into sustained gameplay well, then actually Tycho becomes an issue. And against those lists, he is incredibly good because it's one of these things. It forces the sustain meta a little bit in that you have to be good in a prolonged fight because if you're not, but it's nothing more than Tycho being in the game makes that a thing that you have to be good at. While actually, the one thing that the best factions are good at, it's actually burst. Free folk, one shot burst. Night's Watch, I just do so much damage, it's irrelevant if you heal, I'm still going to kill you. Targaryens, we're talking one shot burst with veterans, or units that just don't care if you heal again, because their sustain is so good naturally with Blood Riders.
He gives sustain to everybody, and then that suddenly means that if your opponent brings Tycho, you don't bring Tycho, then your opponent can just like threaten to play a sustainer game against you, and then you're in really bad waters. And like you have to be running like amazing alpha strikes, otherwise your opponent's just going to be like, oh, okay, that was your best shot. Well, I'll take it and heal, and now I'll give you my best shot back. Oh, and you can't heal. Okay, now you're in trouble. But
so NRG, I got the stats up for us, found the stats for us. Do you remember what the pick rate for Varys was?
I see. I want to say it was 60 something percent. I want to say like 63. Like I think it's very similar to what current Tycho is.
You think so?
Yes, that's what I'm going to stick with that.
So Varys and Walder Frey. This was NRG 1.
Who was higher? Was Varys higher or was Walder higher?
Varys was higher in NRG 1.
Varys was higher. I'm going to go with this is 4-point Varys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to say 60%.
What if I told you that Varys wasn't even the most picked NCU? Sansa Stark was the most picked NCU.
Sansa Stark at 3 points was.
Yeah, 32 picks over to Varys' 29. And that's across all lists. So even the Varys, and for what it's worth, Walder had 15 picks in NRG1. Arya actually stepped in between them with 25 picks. So the Sansa girls, the Stark girls were being picked way more. And Varys and Tycho were there.
Did Sansa have a 60% pick rate in Stark?
I believe so. That's right. Yeah.
Okay, because I felt like somebody was being picked at a 60% rate. But yeah, Jesus. Yeah, yeah, Ariakas. What if I told you? What if I told you that Tycho Nestoris at 60% is bonkers? Yeah, absolutely bonkers.
Sansa was picked 32 times across 42 lists. So it was basically a 70%, 75% pick rate, which is nuts. But Varys was picked 29 across, how many was it?
64?
Is that right?
With 2 lots of lists, so 120.
Yeah, so Varys was comparatively. So this was an early one. This was an early event, of course. When we look at things like the TSL and later on, Varys had a much higher pick rate because the performance of Varys was much higher at that point when the meta had fully developed. But yeah, like Tycho makes the Varys and Walder inclusion in lists look like an absolute child's play.
Yeah. I mean,
It actually does.
Illyrio at 13 is a lot.
Yeah.
Tycho's at 53.
Like to put it
like,
in perspective, we're talking about 1.6 meta. Tycho is picked more than
Varys and Walder put together.
Varys and Walder put together.
Put together. That's worse than I thought it would be. That's so much worse.
Tycho is bad for the game. I'm gonna straight up say it. Like it's. I don't even care if he's not that powerful. He is just bad for the game because he shouldn't be this ubiquitous. And could we sit here and argue that there are better picks? Like we talked about before, is Illyrio a better pick than Tycho?
Yeah. So Illyrio functions in a fulfills a very similar role, but does it in a very different way. Mm-hmm. He's a zone replace. I expect to heal a lot more over the game thanks to Illyrio than I do Tycho. But Tycho lets me just say, I need it now. Right? Like, I need it right now. I need the healing here. It's going to save me the game. It's going to save me the unit. It's going to save me my activations. It's going to save me the tempo. It's going to keep him locked in a combat that he didn't want to get stuck in. Illyrio is going to be like, hey, I don't really want to take any one of these zones. I just want to block one, or like there's nothing good left. And he'll get so much more value total. I expect to be healing 9 wounds 3 times at least, during the game. But being able to take both is amazing because then I get both. I get crazy amount of healing and I get it whenever I need it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's hard. It's hard because I don't think that Tycho is that far from balanced, but his play rate is crazy. That's through the roof.
I mean, for what it's worth, if and I know that not everyone is a free folk player, but Lady Val does appear in 4 of 4 lists. Now I know margins are tiny here, but Lady Val is obviously a very value NCU that a lot of free folk players will tell you is good. I don't think many free folk players will tell you that Lady Val is probably one of the best NCUs in the game, which I think she's probably is actually. I genuinely believe that being able to do a maneuver off any zone is strong if you know how to use that. But if you scale this up, Lady Val might appear in 70-80% of lists, and we've seen those kind of numbers from Val before in free folk lists. But the big thing for me there, she's an in-house in-house NCU, so in which case she's competing with her other options, so she probably is the best option there. And it's okay because the neutrals aren't accessible by that same faction, so their choice is a lot lower. So they're by their very nature going to be picked more anyway. You've got to pick 3, and you don't have to pick 3, but you're looking to pick 3, and there's only 5 NCUs you got to pick from. Look, you're probably going to pick the similar ones. But Val is an equivalent. But for me, the difference is that Tycho's neutral. Now, Tycho being neutral and not in-house. If Tycho was picked in-house 53 times, like in, say, Starks or something, then what you're saying there is that Starks are just really massively picked. And that's kind of okay. But he's overtaking native options because he's just that good in comparison to the native options. And that itself is an issue. More so than his ubiquitous nature. Ubiquitous is a problem. But it's the fact that he's massively pushing out in-house options.
Yeah, I think I think Weasel's right also that part of the reason why he's so highly picked is that all he has to do is be better than your 3rd best NCU within your own faction.
Yeah.
If you're just better than the 3rd best NCU, and when you consider how generically shifted all the NCUs were from 3 to 5 range up to 4 to 6, and how they didn't necessarily get any better when that shift happened. Tycho used to be the fourth best choice for everybody, and now he's the second best choice for everybody. So he appears in 100% of everything because all but one player is fielding 2 or more NCUs. So he gets picked up nearly all the time. Yeah, I think that's enough on that. Like, I don't like.
It's
yeah.
If designers watch this, if this ever reaches the ears of designers, like this has got to be something that they take away and say, look, this, like, if you want community feedback, this is genuine community feedback. We don't want this as a competitive community to sit here and say, what's your best thing that you can do? And it's like, oh, you just take Tycho. Like, that's not. It's the same problem we have with Walder and Varus. It's not good advice, as in like advice to give.
Mickey only says that because he can't take neutrals. I want Tycho.
Yeah, I know, but like my point is that it's
I want
just
Tycho in 100% of my lists. I want Tycho in 100% of everybody's lists. It makes.
Hang on, if everyone has Tycho,
it makes activation control even more important.
It does actually?
That's why I'm happy for Tycho to exist.
So hang on, is this one of those? If everybody has Tycho, does that mean nobody has Tycho?
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah, no, that's not good. I think the next thing that obviously is worth talking about is Champion of the Faith. To nobody's surprise, probably comes up as the most picked generic attachment.
Yeah.
Warcry like, for a point.
Warcry for a point, really, really good. Mormont veteran, Hardened for a point, really, really good. Interesting, they're both coming in at like 18% selection. Starks and Lannisters, they are the two 1-point attachments that define those two factions. Watch Captain, like Night's Watch barely gets selected at all, and yet there's a ton of Watch Captain. The pick rate per list of Watch Captain is more than one. There are only 4, or is it 1? Are there 6 Night's Watch lists?
There are 6
3 Night's Watch players.
And Tom has 4 of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, they are. They're insane pick rate.
Yeah.
Proportion.
Glory Seeker is interesting because I don't rate him that highly. Stark Sworn Sword Captain, I think is trash tier. So,
Glory Seeker is popular in Target cavalry build.
In the words of Elite 10, what crack pipe are these people smoking?
Mate, 4 people are running Assault Veterans. I see no one's pushed the boat out and gone for a Sentinel Enforcer though. That 1-point taunt, no one wanted a 1-point taunt. Ah, damn! It must be that taunt is just not an ability that's taunt shit. That's why you don't see it. Please, for the love of God, stop telling me taunt is not as bad as people think it is. It's shite. Anyway, ran over on taunt.
Yeah. I mean, I tell you what's interesting about that. Am I right?
Go on.
Yeah, it goes back to, I can't even remember who said it. I think it might have been Ilya who said it before. 100% of those attachments cost 1 point or 3 points. They cost 1 point or they have Relentless. That's 2-point attachments don't exist. People don't buy them.
There are some character attachments that are 2 points, I believe, that may have been picked up.
Yeah, is Vargo 2?
Vargo might be 2. Ramsey is 2 for his attachment version, I think.
Oh, come on, neutrals don't count. Neutrals don't count.
Okay,
neutrals have no choices.
Yeah. I don't even care that I'm going to point out a spelling mistake, but I quite like Bryn the Blue. Bryn the Blue does appear in a list.
Barristan sell me. Barristan sell me the secret red cloak tech. Still don't believe it.
Yeah. But it's interesting. I mean, the most picked character attachment out there in competing with the numbers that Champions of Faith and Mormont Veterans are putting out is Darian Aharis at a point, bringing crit blow and precision for the risk of ones being self wounds, Actually, yeah, like most, if not everybody, sits down and goes, that has value. Like that is a good 1 point attachment for an infantry unit if you want something aggressive that's going to do damage.
Everyone in chat telling me that I'm totally wrong. There's loads of 2 pointers going down.
In
All right, I
the
didn't see the other
characters.
column, guys.
No, no non-named 2 point attachments were picked. You have
No
to have a
one.
name and be 2 points to get picked.
Wait, no, there's one. There's one Reekin.
Yeah,
I
he's
can
got
see
a
a
name.
Reek.
He's not generic, is he?
How many expert duelists? There's 6 Drogos.
Mhm. You're
Are
gonna have to
there
forgive me on this
are there
one.
any Loris
There's a Loris attachment.
in command? What about in
No
commanders?
commander.
No. Does Loris attachment have it too? Yeah.
I think so. I actually
Yeah.
have.
We'll call
Well,
it
I'm pretty sure it
7.
does.
Jamie Lannister Kingsguard, 2 of 8, 9. Vargo
Yeah, he does.
Commander
Vargo's.
doesn't.
They
Vargo
both.
attachment
They
does.
both do, right? They
They both.
both have assassination abilities.
Yeah. They
It's
don't have
not.
exactly expert duelists. They spend a weekend to kill for sure, right?
Yes. And one of them puts a weakened out, and for the 2 point attachment, they have vicious, and if you fail the test, you become weakened, and then they can spend it. So one of them is basically if you attack with and charge with that unit, you will guarantee assassinate with the commander version because you can spend the order as well.
That puts
The
us at 10.
attachment
Everybody's
version.
saying calls as well.
Yeah,
There's
Carl's in there
a
for.
2 point call. How many 1 point calls are
There's
there?
quite a few 1 point Carls. Carl 1 point
He's
appears
probably
7
the
times.
most numerous, actually.
7.
7 of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's even more than there are Drogos. So he nearly doubles it. I reckon we're at 18 expert duelists across about 90 lists. That's quite a lot. 1 in 5 lists. 1 in 5 lists runs expert duelist.
Yep.
Too prevalent? Not prevalent enough? Not enough to stop people from using attachments.
No, not enough for people to stop using named attachments. I don't think. I have no opinion on that, to put it bluntly. As in, like, I just don't think it's important. And I know it sounds really weird. There's only one expert duelist that matters, and it's expert duelist on things that are going like Carl for 1 point, because you're going to get more than a point's value out of the assassination when it happens. I think the moment you start moving to 2 point cost to assassinate, so we're talking Kingsguard Jamie, we're talking Vargo Hope, we're talking all those other ones.
You've got to be killing a relentless.
Yeah, kind of.
Or a commander.
Yes, yeah, or commander in an important thing.
Can, it has value because it's not going to be on your commander, or at least, as long as you're not talking about Loris commander.
You drop off. In order for you to fit that 2 point attachment into most of these factions, what are you doing? You're making your list 7 points. 7 drops.
Yeah,
and if you're 7
you
drops,
probably lose the whole activation for it.
You're going to lose out on deployment anyway. Your expert duelist isn't going to deploy opposite my commander, because I'm not stupid. You don't get the option to do that. So I don't like the 2 point assassination picks. I think the 2 point assassination picks are, generally speaking, bad value for money. But I do think Carl is very good. And I do think the 2 point Carl version for the extra morale isn't bad, because you're probably picking it up in something where you're paying, you want to pay a point for that morale. You're not paying a point for expert duelist. Whereas things like Loris, you're pretty much like, what does he gives precision, doesn't he? I think attachment Loris. Yeah. To be honest, you're paying 2 points for expert duelist, and you get precision on the unit anyway. You're not paying a point for each ability. I know you technically get 2 for the price of 1, but whatever. No, you don't. Anyway,
I still don't have a problem with expert duelist. I'm still not bothered about it either way. You can field it. You can not field it. I'll field it. I'll not field it. I don't think that it's the MPE that people portray it as, but
do you know what? Expert duelist is good against?
Relentless.
Drowned men.
Hmm.
Anything with wound
Hardened.
caps. Hmm?
Hardened. Yeah,
Hardened.
but yes, you're right. The solo drowned men. Just here's a wound. I'm ignoring the rest of your stupid abilities. Yeah.
Um, and giants, because if you're an expert duelist, it means you can always do wounds to giants before they crush you with their skull, apparently. Anyway, yeah, so that's the data breakdowns from Connor there. I know we've kind of like, because this is just interesting. It's not really about the GT so much, but just interesting to see list builds.
Mm.
Got the activation day. Here you go. What a legend. And Connor has for us listed. He didn't do expert duelist because he admits he made a mistake.
31 war cries.
31
Yeah.
war cries.
I hadn't even thought about it. I hadn't even thought about counting it.
Hardened up there 15 times. That's a lot, but it's not a huge amount. You know what I mean? Like, it's not twistingly large amounts.
Well, I mean, it appears 6 times out of 6 Night's Watch lists.
Oh, Relentless, you mean?
Oh, sorry, Relentless. Sorry,
Yeah, Relentless is 6 out of 6.
Yeah.
Hardened only appears in 2 lists because of Awful. But Hardened 15 picks isn't that high. The Relentless number is quite large, obviously, with Night's Watch picking up 6 and Greyjoy's picking up 6. Strangely enough, only 7 supply aids, but you know that's limited by the number of Night's Watch. No Baratheons.
I mean, there's more supply aid than Relentless inside of Night's Watch, so yeah.
I'd just like you to, important thing here for people, if you're ever in doubt, if a faction needs to have good abilities on their units, if you're ever in doubt, I'm just going to keep zooming in on that neutrals column. Let's have a look at neutrals' access to those good abilities. Oh, right, yeah, they don't. They literally don't even have access.
And what about Baratheons?
I mean, they have supply aid, because they've got Davos.
Yeah. Fielded 0 times, which is why it's not a dash. But
isn't it weird?
There's none of them in Baratheons either.
Oh, isn't it weird? You don't have much. You do technically have Hardened with Eldon. He's maybe missed Hardened off there, but you don't have Relentless. You have very limited access to Hardened, if none at all. You don't have Warcry, and let's face it, the Priestess doesn't count. And you basically don't have Supply. Oh, I wonder if those abilities are somewhat linked to the power level of these factions. As part of
I don't know what you're talking about. Targs don't have access to Hardened. Clearly underpowered.
Clearly underpowered. That must mean that the 9 war cries that we see them field. Oh dear.
Which has got to be what? Blood Riders? What else?
Yes.
What else war cries?
Does anything else war cry?
I don't think anything else does war cry. I think that might be a typo because there can't be 9
surely.
Blood Riders. There can only be 6 Blood Riders.
This is why you should always do your own stats, guys. But yeah,
Still.
I mean, still, he might have been counting other things, but yeah, it's just nuts. It's obviously. Sorry, I just you can't see that on stream very well, guys. I don't know if this is tournament results page that Connor wants to put up, or if he's just putting this up because like he's just doing a test thing. But he's got a tournament's result page, and that's all it says on it.
This might be his. This might be his prediction for the tournament.
Yeah,
this might be been his secret prediction for the event. Although it's unfair to call Targaryens just Mother of Dragons. There's Drogo's in there too.
Yeah, it is. I just thought that was hilarious when I saw that. Sorry. Yeah. So anyway, that's the breakdown there. I think that this is quite telling of what we call the meta, but actually what we call like online meta is different. Online meta people do run more cookie cutter. We are seeing way more 7s than we would see on an online event. You know, the average activation count is much more in the 7 ballpark rather than the 8 ballpark, which we've seen from online. So this really does highlight to me, like, I'll use the term local meta, but like national level metas rather than international level metas, and that isn't to say that national meta is any way, shape, or like worse. It is just different. There are 6 and 7 lists here which I can see doing well because they're built to counter those kinds of things. Um, you know, it's not the international level where if you don't bring 9 or 10 activations, then what the hell are you doing with your life? And
Play a
those
different
6
faction.
lists just get sad. But yeah. Final thoughts, Carlo.
Can't wait for the event. Can't wait to see everybody on Friday night as well. I think there's going to be supposed to be a really big social meal on the Friday. Loads of people will be there nice and early because obviously to get to Stirling for most English people is not a Saturday morning travel job. They're all going on the Friday. Yeah, really looking forward to just seeing people getting to play games, and it looks like a really high level event, like just as high. Hopefully all these people manage to make it on the day. Hopefully they all turn up, and if they do, then we are talking about the LGT again, and I'm really pleased about that because obviously I didn't play in the LGT, so I'd love to run it back and play this time, and really looking forward to some really close hard fought games.
Yep. We have got one more announcement to make, and of course, it wouldn't have a run up to a big event without some hobby related stuff as well. So we'll do the hobby related stuff for Carlo's benefit. We all know that Carlo is the one benefiting from this that we do. I want to see what you think of this. See if you like this or not, Carlo. It is a little bit risque.
Ooh.
It is on topic, though. Today's discussions. Oh, zoomed far too much in. It would help if I actually showed it to you, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
There we go.
That's I'm just waiting. I'm just waiting here for Eric to like look over his shoulder, like to give that look back camera shot. He looks there, that one over the other shoulder, giving that look back. That's really nice color work. Actually, I was actually speaking with Mickey on Friday night about that. The way I paint has so little artistic talent involved. There's no blending and merging of colors into other colors, and the usage of like off colors to shade is expert 0 out of 10 work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's
really
really nice. I really like the addition he's even got with the hammer making a bit of a dent in the boat.
Yeah, I mean the base is exceptional.
Yeah.
But for example, what I'm talking about there is like the green / blue used to shade the brown is actually just like a really nice artistic effect, which I think is a much more modern style of painting. You know, like back 15, 20 years ago or whatever, when like it was just Games Workshop dominated, and paint, you know, like painting's come a really long way in that period. It was just like, hey, you paint in brown, here's your dark brown, here's your ink, because they were inks then, not washes. Here's your ink, that's going to be black, and then here's a lighter brown, and that's like how colors were made up. But much like people like, you know, James Wapple and stuff like that, and loads of others, really like just pushed the bar of what people are willing to try and do. And it's a step beyond me still. I still don't really try that kind of color blend. I still go for, this is my middling tone, and then I'm going to bring it a bit deeper with the same color and bring it a bit lighter with the same color. So I really love it when people can do something way more artistic.
It doesn't stop there. We've got some more by the same artist.
Artiste. We're real Simon artists now. That's interesting with the red. The bases are nice.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen them in red. Yeah, I like the dark muted colors on them. Good zero work.
Yeah,
Lovely
from the back
floppy
as
axe.
well.
Lovely floppy axe just on the left, middle left right now. You can really see the really see the bend on his axe.
The power of the stroke. You'll be glad to know, Carlo, that you've given zeros to your favorite person in the world. Those are from Bloodraven, Camille. So
I would be very interested in watching Bloodraven play Greyjoys. The
and paint
dirty
Greyjoys,
casual that he is.
playing Greyjoys, painting Greyjoys, just being a person. I'm 90% sure Carlo's got a man crush on Bloodraven.
I do.
Okay, so a couple more announcements. I actually got requested by this off Prince Whiskey and Mizatide. Ben, big shout out to the guys over in Swindon for an event on the 13th of February. They're looking to get as many people as possible for that. They've been pretty good at the moment. I think they've got me. They did tell me. I'll get the number up here. It's 10 people so far signed up for the event. They're looking to get as many people as they can to that. So massive shout out to the guys there. If you are interested and available and you're even remotely close to Swindon, an event on the 13th of February. There are other events happening this weekend as well as Always Winter. There is running. North of the Wall is actually happening tomorrow. Before I confuse myself. We have got Weekend Warfare, TTS. We have got the Always Winter, obviously. We have got a classic tournament in Gdansk, Poland. We have got Mythicos Studios running the Walls of Winter. Shout out to Mythicos and the guys over there. That's in New Jersey. And we've got Ogre's Den, LVO Primer in Cali, in Orangevale. And another event on Sunday in Poland, and this time in Poznan. And that is it running next weekend.
Things really just ramping back up after, like a Christmas, January lull. Like I say, when we think back to where we were last year, I don't think that there were any events running right now, right? Everybody was like paralyzed by the impending release of 2021. There were no big tournaments, nothing else. So I think that we're in a much better place than we were a year ago. And I'm so glad that we're not waiting for this, upcoming set of balance, that we're not allowing that once again to just like leave us in a state of competitive limbo where we never know whether or not we should be playing. We just have to keep playing. We have to keep playing with the rules that we got. If you want to play ELO, play ELO. If you want to put bans in, put bans in. If you want to play full board, go for it. Absolutely go ham. They're all great ways to play the game. Just keep playing. And when the balance comes, the balance comes. Yeah. And I look forward to it. But more than looking forward to the balance, I look forward to the events.
Yeah, definitely.
Events. I really can't wait.
Meeting people, playing against people. And on that note of events, the last actual announcement, believe it or not, we should have done it when we were at 70 viewers rather than the measly 36 of you that still watch. Shout out to the people still watching.
I mean, Marlon's just turned up. Marlon's just turned up in time.
Or he's been watching and he's just been silent today. Carlo was saying that he absolutely loves the jokes that you make, Marwin, and the memes. He thinks you're actually a legend. And he was even just talking about it on Friday. He actually laughed at himself, being like, "Oh, Marwin's so great." Actual truth.
Can't wait for you to come and say hello on Saturday.
Yeah. So yes, last piece of news was actually a little bit of an announcement for Elite Teddy in relation to where are we getting there in the end? The GT. There we go. GT. As we did last year, there is a starter prize going out to a person who purchases a ticket to the London GT in the first month of ticket release. Ticket releases go on sale. Is it the end of this month, start of February?
28th. Yeah, so that'll be 1 week after the Scottish GT, the weekend of LVO.
Yep.
Where hopefully somebody will qualify for the Invitational. Really love for an American to come over and show us what it's about. Absolutely kick everybody. And so anybody that purchases in the first month will go into a prize draw for a free starter. It will be given out on the day this time. There was a whole load of difficulty with trying to get that Greyjoy starter out early. So this time, just if you're going to come to the LGT, buy your ticket straight away. Don't wait. Don't delay. That helps us all. Helps us show that the event's going to be really big and even better this time. Helps us show the LGT organizers that they're going to give us that even better spot, even more attention. We will be bigger than Age of Sigmar in absolutely no time, which would mean that we are a real game, like a real game that people care about. Yeah. Whether Simon want to give it enough support or not, we'll make it a real game.
So yeah, purchase it now, as I believe the starter set will be it's of your choice, I believe. I don't know. Chris might be able to correct me on that one next week.
Not sure.
Not sure.
Cannot promise Martells.
Can't promise Martells. Obviously, can't promise any unreleased sets. Obviously, probably know that. But that does include the new Lannister and Stark starters, which are potentially available. Yeah. Those will obviously be obtained if that's the way we want to go, as I'm sure you guys are aware.
Hopefully, there'll be huge amounts of Simon support again. They did an absolute solid last time. I think if we can, again, with those early ticket sales, if we can show this, we can show Simon that it's going to be an even bigger and better event, then we can make sure that they're wanting to support it in the same kind of size, same kind of capacity again. Because that really just made sure that everybody went home with
something,
as much stuff as they paid for their ticket. Like everybody got everybody went home with a unit box. So
yeah. So with that, guys, we will leave it for this week. 3 hours has been a long one. It's been a lot to talk about. There's lots of actual things going on nowadays in the community. The last point last thing I want to ask Carlo is obviously looking forward to A Song of Ice and Fire. Always winter. GT this weekend in Scotland. The real question, Carlo.
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to be sat here next Monday talking about the New Balance patch?
No.
One more week for that, guys, probably. So we will see you next Monday. We will break down what Always Winter was always like. Always like? Bit weird.
That was almost amazing. I can't believe you didn't just roll with that. I'll tell you what, Always Winter was always like.
Anyway, we'll tell you what it was always about. Oh, Jesus, just did it again. And we'll be back on Monday, same time, same place. Thank you very much for tuning in. 70 viewers today, concurrent. That's huge. Massive shout out to all the community members who watch us and put up with us. We'll see you this time next week.
See you soon.
Ready, aim, release! Anyone see my mammoth?